What I want to shoot into today is how to begin to break out of the trap that you're probably in regarding your social skills, regarding your happiness, regarding ability to travel, regarding ability to make money, regarding ability to live a fulfilling life, regarding the ability to find your purpose, what you're good at, and actually build a life that you really, really like. I want to show you the traps that the average person is in, and then I want to begin to show you how to break out of the traps. We're not going to have time to show you the entire structure of how to break out of the traps today, but we can make a lot of headway on it. I think we can chip away at it quite a lot. And then the main thing just being to recognize the trap. I believe that when you can recognize the trap itself, that will actually create a great degree of urgency on you. It kind of shows you the mountain that you're climbing, and then as a result of that, you'll be a lot better off, okay? So I want to begin by saying that the average person, they do a lot of self-soothing. There's a lot of self-soothing to pretend the situation is not as bad as it really is. And so they'll say things like, you know, we'll always figure it out in the end. Everything happens for a reason. You know, it's going to sort itself out. You know, I'm going to live my dreams. And so over the years, I'm turning 43 this year. I've been a huge, huge pessimist where I'll talk to people and, you know, I'll be talking to regular friends of mine. You know, maybe they'll have a friend and they'll say they're going to figure it out. And I'm like, they're not. And, you know, and people are always like, you're so pessimistic. And I'm like, look, and sometimes I decide if I want to lie about it. I'm like, well, should I just lie? I'm like, no, they're totally gonna like build that amazing thing, right? And like, there's just a reality that when you study this for enough years and you've watched different people's trajectories, you can see the reality of how stuck people are. And once you understand that and that you understand what would be necessary to get unstuck, you begin to realize that most people are just never going to get unstuck, okay? Let me show you a couple examples of what that might look like and why most people can't get unstuck. Okay, let's talk about social skills. So in social skills, what do we know about what works? We know that when you build confidence, your voice becomes louder, you get more dominant and hilarious vocal projection. Just the way that you talk is kind of funnier and more free associative and more dominant. We understand that over time, your body language opens up, your creative thinking opens up. And so socially, when you feel great about yourself, you just wind up transforming and you transform into someone who's attractive. But what happens is that when you feel beaten down and you feel crappy, then what happens is that your voice clogs up, you go into very submissive intonation, your sense of humor winds up getting stifled in, you wind up not believing in yourself, and you struggle to free associate, and then you give weird vibes. What do we know about when you give weird vibes? When you give weird vibes, people think that you're weird, which then makes you feel weird, which then lowers your confidence even more. As your confidence gets lower and lower, then what winds up happening is that you go to try to meet anybody and you feel even more submissive and you feel even less confident. Your brain is even more shut down. You can't think of what to say. You're not charismatic at all. And then more people think that you're weird. As more and more people think that you're weird, people turn to different outlets to deal with that. That could be alcohol or drugs. A lot of people smoke weed to numb the pain. A lot of people get into video games, excessive fapping. I've never really seen the huge deal in fapping, but some people swear by no fap, you know, but they can go excessive with it. And then they get also into, sometimes they even kind of take on these identities as like embracing being a loser. Like this kind of thing where like they sort of just embrace. It's like, yeah, I'm a weird freak. Yeah, that's who I am. Yeah. And they just kind of go down that road. It's kind of like in high school. I actually think goth culture is kind of cool. I actually like Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that. But the point being is like, there's sort of that culture that you'll see in high school where like maybe a kid understands that they're not going to fit in. And so they just fully embrace it. I used to see goth kids in high school where they'd say like, ha, they were scared of us, ha, ha, ha. Like almost like so, they're basically getting to the point where they struggle to fit in or to have friends so much that they kind of just take the table and they just say, screw this. And they flip the whole table. And they say, rather than me even trying to actually have friends, I'm gonna just hang out with like 4 or 5 other goths and just try to alienate everybody and then take joy in that. Because then at least I can have a criteria in which I win. So you'll see different variations of that. You know, people getting stuck in these weird little silos of kind of negative thinking. Some of them even get so dark, they go to a point where they just sit there in some little internet silo all day long, complaining about how they could never get any social results, and they just loop on that and loop on it and loop on it, and it actually becomes an addiction in the mind, and they become absolutely obsessed with how they're never going to be able to get a result, and they're completely at the effect of life. And, you know, I've met people that are in those silos, and actually, I'm the kind of person where I tend to like pretty much everybody. So I've met people that are in those silos, and I hear them out. Sometimes they got some really interesting points. I actually find it to be eye-opening to see how they think or to see, you know, the way that, you know, what it is they focus on. And I just love all people in general. So it's one of those things where I've met people with different beliefs than myself, and I still have a lot of love for them. Sometimes they can even like show me a couple things I didn't think of. Like one guy who I met, he was showing me how like He had like very severe, he got in a car accident and his jaw got like super dislocated. And I would always say like appearance doesn't matter. And he would listen to me. But then he realized later that if he got a surgery, he could pull his jaw back, and he felt that it actually really helped him. And I actually thought that was good feedback for me because I never really addressed things like that. So I appreciated what he had to say. And he took some of the things I had to say. It was kind of cool. But he's also involved in a very, very deep silo of information to where there's nothing that I'm going to say that's going to truly, I mean, again, he was actually the most open-minded I could ever really ask. But, you know, his belief system is concrete, right? He probably feels the same about me too. And so it's one of these things where you see people that are just getting caught in these ruts, and the chances of getting out of that is almost nothing, okay? The average person's mind over time becomes calcified, ossified. There's addictions in the brain, senses of ego, identity created in the brain. These things are very, very difficult to unwire, and it takes a real expert to unwire them. But in addition, the person has to even have an opening in the first place. I can help people that actually show up at my events and things like that, and it can go pretty awesome if somebody's actually open-minded enough to even show up. But if somebody's not even open-minded enough to show up, the chance of me helping somebody off the street, even with the amount of coaching that I know, is very, very low. The average person is very much stuck in their ways. I've even seen it where people that I associate with closely who understand transformation to a high level, and they don't even get that they're stuck in a weird rut. They don't even get it. And they understand this stuff at a very, very high level, and you can't even get them to change. So change is one of these things where it's kind of this combination of like somebody hitting rock bottom, getting to the point where the pain of staying the same is too high, and then it creates this thing called an opening. And when you have an opening, that's when for like, you know, a couple months, the person is actually willing to change. And they're willing to look at new beliefs. And what's happened is basically, previously in the brain, they were getting dopamine by keeping their existing beliefs. They were getting dopamine from that. And suddenly what happens is that they're not getting any dopamine from it anymore. And so they're looking for a new source of dopamine. And then they're open-minded to other ways of seeing the world. And if they could just open their mind up a little bit, they can see the world very, very differently. It's pretty cool when you see that happen. You can have incredible transformations. It also means that they're going from a coping pattern into a potentially thriving pattern, but they've got to make that shift, okay? So that's how it happens in social skills, right? Is that, you know, the more that you feel weird, the weirder that you get, and then the weirder that you get, the more that you weird people out, and then you wind up just pushing people away, pushing people away, pushing people away, pushing people away, and then it creates this entire cycle to where all of your reference experiences are negative, which then reinforces negative beliefs, which then causes you to focus on the negative in yourself, which then makes all of your physiology and your body language or communication weird, which then causes more people to think bad of you, which then causes you to interpret it bad, and then it just becomes a negative loop, okay? To unwire a negative loop like that, the amount of momentum is pretty intense, okay? And I've done this for years. It's been an obsession of mine for years, and what I'm literally looking for is like those couple rare people that hit a pain point or that are just simply, you get these rare, very, very open-minded people that actually don't need to hit a pain point. They're just, I don't know, maybe like low ego individuals that are curious about life and curious what's possible, and they just think it's kind of cool. But for whatever the case, they can break out of that. Now, if somebody can break out of that, I mean, socially, the things that you could teach them are unbelievable. You'll see people that do things socially that are truly legendary and like the stuff of legends, unbelievable. And you'll see them go on these incredible runs. And I've watched this for years and years and years where people who came into different programs or people who I met through our community who had horrible social results really, really applied themselves and committed to it and committed to going all the way to the end, and they wind up getting the craziest results that you've ever seen. And I've had a life like that, and it's been pretty insane. You know, I've got to the point where, you know, I'd go into, say, a bar or club, and I would walk in there terrified. I'd walk in there in a high state of anxiety. I'd walk in there feeling like everybody's against me and everybody doesn't like me and everybody's judging me. And then, you know, when I was first starting, it wouldn't go well, and I'd be very depressed about it, and I would drive people away. And then maybe I would have one positive social interaction, and then I'd try to focus on that and try to rehearse that in my mind, and then I would try to build upon that, and I'd go there and keep building on it and building on it and building on it, and over time, I actually start to slowly but surely become that person that was like in that one interaction, you know. And so it was almost like if you had 10 interactions, then you'd get it to where maybe one time in 10, I could be that cooler person, but then eventually I could get to 2 times, 3 times, oh no, now I'm back to 1 time, 4 times, 5 times, oh no, now I'm back to 2 times, 6 times, 7 times, oh now I go 2 months at 0. 2 months at 0. And that would happen too, where I'm just like, because I was getting a little bit of progress, I'm starting to feel good about myself, but now I begin to need other people to, you know, validate me and tell me that I am that new person, and then I get extra needy because now I'm like a dopamine addict, and then I give needy vibes, and then I push people away. And I went through incredible patterns of this that were very, very painful, making me not know if I could really pull it off or not. And the main thing that I think allowed me to pull it off was that I just didn't think I had any other choice. I didn't really see another path forward. I didn't understand what the other path forward was. It was basically that or die. So I just viewed it like, just keep trying. I was kind of weird because like, I probably had as much fear about it not working as anybody, but I understood that it was do or die. So for me, it was like, I just was never going to be one of those people that just sort of like joined a group that says it's not possible and just commiserates. I was just never going to be one of those people who did that. I just couldn't live like that. I couldn't bring myself to do that. I couldn't get joy from that. So I had to endure the pain of it. And then as I gained momentum, you know, I had a lot of different experiences, like, for example, bringing people into my life that were probably like a level above who I was. And so I'd be bringing in people maybe, you know, that are more attractive or higher value than what I was. I'd bring them in for a period of time, but because I hadn't fully transformed into that person, then eventually they would leave. And then I'd be upset. And then I go into scarcity, and it really messed up my head for a lot of years, like making this kind of transformation. I don't believe that what I've taught right now is something that you'll see validated in mainstream universities or things like that, nor do I want the validation. I think they just move too slow. I think that they're too much like in an egghead paradigm, you know, like some kind of, you know, university person, like, you know, staring at a bar, writing things down with a pen. It's not a real, like, I feel like what we did is what sociology should be. What we did is what psychology should be. We actually went out there and tried it. You know, you could poke holes in that, and I would actually be very aware of what those are. But the point being is that the general approach is really what should have been done. I think that this is really what needed to be done. We sort of built this through an underground community that later was vilified, and that's actually a shame because the information that we have is second to none. And so it's one of those things where, you know, we kind of jumped onto a community that was just kind of like good as far as like the marketing and the skin of the actual content. And so that kind of built a movement quickly and got the popularity out there. And then there's a lot of cultural shift. And it's a shame because I think the people who like look at our content, they don't give it a real chance and like see what it is that we're really teaching, or see me as somebody who's like a good faith actor that's like, you know, maybe jokes around and things like that, but I'm actually trying to help, and I dedicated my whole life to this. And so it's one of those things where I basically, like, I wanted to quit as culture changed. I'm like, I gotta like just completely never even teach about social skills ever again. But I knew that I had to keep going as far as teaching general social skills because I understand that people can kill themselves. And that's literally something that I understand. And so I just like, well, I've got to just do my best to kind of, you know, keep the general social skills out there because people need to learn it. So really, though, what we're covering here, I've done some social skills training all weekend here, but what I'm covering here is the actual pit that people get into, and recognizing that pit and recognizing how hard it can be to get out of that pit, but also recognizing how amazing it can be if you do. Because the truth is that although it is hard, if you have the awareness that is possible and you have the instruction that is possible, it's actually very, very doable. I was a pioneer in this. I had some cool mentors, but I was largely a pioneer in it, especially as far as a more natural approach, which is really what I wanted to learn. Not heavy on tricks or technique, but a more natural approach, and an approach that entailed real transformation, not just me kind of doing something, but really transforming as a person. And so as a result of that, what I've seen is that people can change very, very quickly. It's actually amazing how quickly you can change. So it is possible to break out of it, but realize that when you're in pain and when you're feeling beaten down and you're feeling low status and you're feeling down on yourself, it can be very, very difficult to keep going. And so that's where you want to do things like get a mastermind group of other people that are going to keep going. And you want to get a support system. You want to get mentors. You want to be on programs. You want to be reading. You want to be watching videos. And you want to be committing to it 100%. And if you could do that, your life could be really, really amazing. Now, likewise, let's look at it a little bit in terms of finance and the same thing, that same rut that you can get into in finance. So, you know, they say youth is wasted on the young. I mean, we barely even have the darn light switch of our brains on as we're going through high school. Scary enough is all the drugs that you get exposed to in high school. Like, my greatest fear for my kids is drug use. And that's because I understand that, you know, I have a huge influence on my kids and I'm a great father, but I actually aspire to be the best father. But the point is that I can only have so much influence, right? What do I say to my kids when, you know, their friends offer them weed and, you know, they get to be cool and girls will like them if they smoke weed and, you know, all that kind of stuff? What do I say to my kids when, you know, when they're off at school and they don't want their dad to tell them what to do? They don't want to just be in the identity of their father. They actually want to be, you know, their own person, right? And I have my own opinion, and they maybe want to create their own identity by having a different opinion and so on and so forth. And now you've got somebody who's in high school blazing down drugs and alcohol, really, really messing with perception, you know, messing with their whole entire energetic system, you know, not showing them how to process emotions properly. And they're going through that. Now, look, getting high a couple times in high school, it's not going to end your life. It's not the end of the world. But the deeper that you go down that road, the harder that it's going to be to get a clearer sense of discernment in life, clear perception. You're just digging a hole for yourself to basically get a buzz or to get some kind of weird like hallucination or whatever, and then you're going more and more down that hole, and it's just very, very hard to get out of it. So now you've already got kids that they don't understand the importance of actually trying to get good grades. They think being popular is more important, which is completely not. Then they're already messing with their perception. They're probably eating a ton of processed foods, which you can kind of get away with when you're younger, but it's not really the best, because if you're growing at that age and eating good foods, you could actually wind up a lot better. I wish I would have done that. And so it's one of those things where already in high school, things are becoming a mess. Now where do you go? You can either go to college, you could owe hundreds of thousands of dollars. Now maybe you're somebody who goes into engineering, or maybe you're somebody who goes into law or something that has a little bit more of a clearer path. But what if you're somebody who's good at liberal arts? What if you want to go take English literature? You want to go take philosophy? You want to go take classics? You want to go take sociology or things like that? Well, now what do you do? How's that going to function for you? Is there a direct pathway to work? I wound up doing a liberal arts degree myself. I did a lot of philosophy, English literature, history, classics, a lot of things on logic and reasoning and things like that. And that helped me, and it made me a lot more intelligent. But I'll tell you something, there certainly was not a clear pathway. Me becoming a teacher on my own became the clear pathway, if that makes any sense, okay? But that was really me kind of taking, throwing a bit of a curveball into the situation, right? Who would have ever expected that I would have done this? I actually wanted to be a professor when I was taking my liberal arts degree, and when I realized that what happened was I had a breakup, and it really, really messed me up for like a year, and as a result, I started getting really bad grades, and I was not ever going to be able to be a professor again. Look at even that, by the way. Let's look at that as an example. I get into a top-notch school. I wind up actually having a hope to get a PhD, and I may be on that trajectory, but from one breakup and me not understanding things like that, it floors me, and as a result of it flooring me, I can't function. I mess up my second year of college, makes it very hard to get a PhD. I'm just thinking when I'm young, I'm just getting a cute little girlfriend. That's all that I'm thinking, right? That's a cool thing normal people do, but I didn't understand the degree of trauma that I had surrounding that issue, and so it messed me up for a very, very long time. So, you can see how that kind of plays out, and then next thing you know, it messes up your entire life, right? Even with what happened to me with teaching the things that I taught, not realizing cultural shifts, and seeing how that messed my life up, right? So these are all these little things that kind of come at you without even expecting it. Life has a lot of twists and turns to it, and it's hard to actually know every single thing that's going to, wind up happening in your life. There's just a lot of stuff that can happen. So let's go even a little bit deeper. So either A, you go to college and you rack up this enormous debt. Now, maybe you get a job out of it, maybe you don't. But even when you get a job out of it, a lot of those jobs, even like the best people from college, the best jobs are like $200K. Now, I know for a lot of you in this room, $200K, that probably sounds like a lot of money, but I got to tell you, it's really not. And so it's, living in LA, that's like, you're basically like middle class at that point, like for real, like lower middle class almost, in a way of looking at it if you live in a big city, because it's just so freaking expensive, right? By the time that you make $200K, you take the taxes off of that, what are you left with? If you have a family, it's not as good as it sounds. So now I know that sounds crazy when I'm saying this, if you're in a position where that would be a lot to you, but you see what I'm getting at here. So and especially with how much money's in society in general and how much you can get at. So maybe you go to college and maybe you get that job. Now what you're doing, let's look at the trap that you got into. You're a young person, you went to college, you now have a student debt, you've got to work a job, you're probably going to rent a house that's like, on the higher end of what you can afford because you want a nice house. Then you get a car that's probably on the nicer end of what you can afford because you want a decent car. You got a cell phone bill. You've got to pay health insurance. And what are you kind of left with, right? You're now working a 9-to-5, grinding it out. It's probably not that fun. It's probably kind of boring. You come home demoralized. You come home tired. Maybe you want to have a beer. Maybe you want to smoke a joint. Maybe you want to play a video game. Maybe you want to just look at the internet. Right? Do you really want to come home from a boring commute into work, boring commute home, and then just sit there working on some new business? And I mean, look, it's frankly hard enough to build a new business, even if you had no responsibilities at all, and all that you had to do was be to build the new business. That would be hard. That's hard enough. That's incredibly hard. Let alone when you have all these different responsibilities that you have to tend to, and you're getting home from work late, and then maybe you have the weekend. Don't you want to chill out a little bit on the weekend? But the problem is, what are most of your friends doing? They're drinking beer, they're just watching sports, things like that, and then you're becoming who you hang out with. Now, let's say that you actually want to build a business. All right, cool. Well, then what winds up happening is that you have to work at every spare moment that you have. When's your chance to decompress? Okay, now let's say, for example, that you don't go to college. Okay, cool. Well, what are your options there? You're probably working a job that makes you like 30 or 40K a year in many cases. Hopefully you don't have kids yet, but basically you're kind of stuck there, and then you've got to make bills, and then you don't have a college debt, and maybe you have a little bit more incentive to go build a business, but it's also very, very tough. And again, it's that whole thing where you basically have to dig your way out of this somehow. So you see how this trap occurs. We just get put into a trap. And there's plenty of opportunity out there, and there's plenty of ways to get wealthy, tons of them. But the only way that you're really likely, in my view, to break out of it is with absolute total laser-like focus, absolute commitment to the process. And then the big one, let me tell you one that drives me nuts, but maybe you guys don't relate to this. I live in LA, and the dumb things that I hear, they honestly just drive me crazy, just the stupidity that I hear out of people. I think people really did watch the movie The Secret, and I think they really believe it, and I think they just think they're going to manifest millions of dollars. Because I'll tell them things like, for example, I took 3 years to go and travel the country and really go see it, and I'll meet people in LA, and I'll commonly say things like, yeah, I traveled for 3 years, I saw the country, and they'll often say things like, I bet your business got bigger than ever when you did that, didn't it? I'm like, where do you get that? Like, where do you derive that from? What do you mean my business gets bigger than ever if I travel for 3 years? Like, what taught you that? What realms of misunderstanding about business you have that you believe that? Or, for example, during COVID, we actually built out a digital online model that's really, really good. I mean, we killed it. It's really amazing what we built. We killed it. We did amazing. But it certainly wasn't bigger than the 20-year company that we built when we were able to do live events. And so people will, they'll hear me like, I'll talk to people in LA. I'll be like, oh yeah, we stopped doing live events during COVID, but we do a lot of online stuff. And they're like, I bet you're making more money than ever. And I'm like, what makes you think that? Like, what does that say about you that you believe that that's possible? Right? Or for example, when we were, by far the market leading, and then we moved into self-help. Now, we've got it to where we're doing better than ever now. It's taken 4 years, but people will say to me, like right as soon as we switch, like, that's like a broader audience. You must be doing better than ever. Right? And it's almost like people believe that if you just say words like better than ever, or if you just say things like it's almost trying to make it easier for themselves. Like they're saying it, they're pretending like they're talking to you to add value to you, but what they're really doing is they're trying to minimize how hard the climb of the mountain is in their mind so that way they don't get intimidated by the process, right? It's things like that. And it's one of these things where people never really do the math of like what's involved in real success, right? For example, I do a lot of free events, and people will see me doing the free events, and like they pretend that they understand why we do free events, and they pretend that they understand the business model. They have no clue what the business model is behind free events. They have no clue that we lose hundreds of thousands of dollars doing free events, but it's in the products that we record, or so we do product recordings, we do social media recordings, and we also build our public speaking skill set, and we also workshop a lot of material. So we make money on the back end of it, but it's many, many, many steps removed. But people want to frame it like, you just do the free tour, make a couple sales, make your meals, go and run off in the sunset. Maybe just do a digital business from the forest for 3 years, right? Like they're totally delusional about what's involved in something like that. They always want to think it's like easy money. They always want to think that the person running the business is just making easy money, and that, but I didn't want to run a business because I'm more like ethical, or, whatever they're telling themselves, completely insane. And it's one of these things where, there is a real mountain to climb here, okay? It's a real mountain that you're climbing, and the climb is possible. You can absolutely get on the other side of that mountain, but here's the basic way that I would put it to you. Think about a forest where the tallest trees, how they say the rich get richer, the poor get poorer? Okay, the tallest tree, it grows up higher than the other trees, so it's getting more of the sun, and that tree has a chance to do better and better and better and better, right? That tree the tree that gets up there first gets more of the sun. If somebody's already rich, let me show you an example of a cycle why somebody who's already rich is likely to get more and more rich. Let me show this to you, okay? Let's compare it to social skills. In social skills, if you're already feeling great about yourself, your subcommunication changes. The way you communicate changes. The way that you feel about yourself changes. That is why in social skills, when it rains, it pours. Okay, when it rains, it pours. When you're killing it, you could do no wrong. When you suck, you can't seem to put one foot in front of the other without falling on yourself, without tripping on yourself, right? I've had periods in building social skills where I went on several month runs, where everywhere that I went, people were loving me, and it went amazing. Have amazing results. But what I've also seen is I had month periods when I was learning this early on, where for several months, I did very, very bad. And what happened is I did very, very poorly, was my confidence got kicked down, kicked down, kicked down, kicked down. It really, really messed me up. And as it messed me up, I felt worse and worse about myself. I was weirder and weirder, and I felt myself becoming weirder. And it's one of these really sad things that like needs to be addressed. Like, this can't just be me teaching this, okay? Like, we need to address this at a mainstream level, like what is happening to people when they're getting kicked down and how that caused them to become weird and can cause them to become really, really weird, and it can cause them to do just things I don't even want to get into. And so you don't want people getting to that point, okay? You don't want people failing like that. You can't force someone to succeed. They've got to want it. You can't make everyone succeed. It's their choice. It's their freedom. But you at least want to have, ideas out there to help people. And if people don't like my ideas, like, this is kind of how I feel about it. Like, for anybody that ever criticized my ideas, that's fine. I don't care. I don't even want to do this. I don't even want to teach this. I want to teach other things. You guys probably know that by a lot of what I've taught you this weekend. But I teach this stuff specifically because I haven't seen anybody else teaching something that you can use. I just haven't seen it. There's other people within our space that do, but I haven't seen anything outside of our space that actually helps people to change. Other than just saying, accept your lot in life and just, suck it. You know what I'm saying, right? Like, suck it up. So it's one of these things where in social skills, when you're doing well, it becomes an upward spiral. You kill it, and that's why you want to keep building yourself in that upward spiral. But when you're doing badly, it's a downward spiral. Well, let's look at that with money, okay? Let me give an example with money. Let's say right now that you had all the money that you need. Well, what are some things that you could do? You could join into networking groups that cost $100,000 a year or $1 million a year. You could join that and get around other people like that. You could join in inexpensive mentoring groups and so on and so forth. You could also do that. You could also go get a lot of supplements, right? You could go take high-end, I take ginseng that costs $1,500 a month. You could take ginsengs that cost, it's like 50 or 100-year-old ginseng. Makes a really, really big difference. You could be taking expensive ginsengs, expensive reishi mushrooms. You could be getting grass-fed steak. You could be getting organic fruits and vegetables, right? That's going to help furnish your mind. You could afford to have a personal trainer. Now all of a sudden you're getting more and more fit, which also helps your mind. You could also get a meditation coach. You could get an amazing psychologist. You could go get staff that could help you. You could go get other mentors that help you. You could afford to hire me one-on-one. Imagine what that's like. I work with a lot of very wealthy clients one-on-one. The rates are very high. But imagine you have all that money and you have me just sitting there right beside you one-on-one for hours a week. Imagine what your life would look like. But I'm not the only person that you can get like that, right? Guys like my friend Ty Lopez will literally get like the Gracie brothers to be his MMA coach. He'll get David Buss to be his shrink. He get just any top-notch person that you could ever get as a mentor. He just goes and buys it because he has enough cash to do so. Look at somebody like Ty Lopez. He has private jets. Now he doesn't have to wait in line at the airport. He can fly to and from wherever he wants private really quick, conveniently work on the plane, bring his whole staff. Now it's moving quicker. He can afford to eat the best foods, get the best trainers, get the best coaches. Now he has money, so other investors want to be around him. The guy did the after party for the Golden State Warriors after they won the championship. Now, in addition to that, which is some things that are kind of obvious, let's go even a little bit deeper. You can also invest money because you have money to invest. Maybe that could go up, maybe that could go down, but given that the market, historically has largely gone up, I don't know what will happen in the future certainly, but historically has gone up, then your money winds up working for you. Maybe somebody worked all year to make $40,000. You have enough money, you could be making $40,000 in an hour because you had those initial resources. You've now become that tree that has all that light at the top. So now all of a sudden you're making somebody's yearly check in an hour. I often make somebody's yearly check in an hour. I'll do one-on-one with people that are wealthy for a common person's check for an hour. Now you hear that, you're thinking, how's that possible? Well, if somebody has a business with hundreds of millions of dollars running through it, and I can help them to get even 1% more money, what does that mean to them? So what happens, but I'm kind of like that as a teacher. As a teacher, I'm like that as well, in the sense that because I've actually built a brand, and because I have a big impact, as a result of that, I will wind up with clients that are very, very successful. So that winds up, I'm kind of a little bit in that upward spiral as well. So, and then imagine the confidence that gives me. Imagine how that makes me feel just when I'm talking to you, and so on and so forth. So it's one of these things where you can afford to make more money. Like and by the way, here's where it really goes up. Then as you become more and more successful, the other top people want to work with you. Okay? A guy like Anthony Robbins, he's probably working with heads of countries from the Middle East. They just want Tony Robbins to be their coach as a status symbol. They'd probably pay him $1 million a year for 3 phone calls, and they'd probably skip 2 of them. Does that surprise you? They give $1 million, they skip 2 of the calls. Why? Right? Tony Robbins brags about the fact, it just was my impression of what he said, what I saw. I don't want to say brag, but that's probably the wrong word, but just expressing that when he does those 1 hour calls, he'll do 3 calls, $1 million. And when the hour hits, he hangs up. He says, back when I was younger, I'd stay on the call another 5 minutes. You know what I realized? I got to have boundaries. Just because I made $330,000 in an hour, I got to have personal boundaries. So as soon as that call ends, click. I was shocked when he said that. But why is it that Tony can do that? Because Tony has enough gravity of his personal brand that the buyer-seller dynamic is skewed. There's only one Tony Robbins. There's probably a bunch of rich, oil sheiks or sheik, whatever you call it, right? What is it, sheik? Sheik? Okay, I got to learn this. I apologize. But anyway, so there's only one Tony. So as a result of that, he can just click the phone off. What does that mean? That means that he doesn't have to stress when he does the phone call. How many of you right now, if you're getting paid $330,000 for an hour phone call, you'd be nervous in front of it. Probably your whole month would be spent thinking about it. You'd probably run it, as many days or weeks or months as you need. You run it the whole year. You'd have no personal boundary at all. But because Tony built a brand, you're not even going to get 10 more seconds. He's not going to have to worry about it before the phone call. He could hang up after an hour. He values his time. Probably go back and kick it with his wife or his kid, whatever. So it's one of these, or get back on his grind, whatever he wants to do. Do you see the difference that this makes? It's astronomical what happens on the other side of this. Now, the pros and cons of this are things that I mentioned yesterday, which is I spoke yesterday about how also having money and power can bring about fake friends. It can bring about the wrong people. It can be very, very shocking, the amount of negativity that it could also bring into your life. So there's definitely pros and cons to making more money and having more success. Absolutely. Okay, so I tried to cover the cons yesterday. Now I'm trying to show a little bit about how to come over, and I'm trying to show you some of the pros. But, for all the cons that are there and things that are confusing as far as the ups and downs, the added complexities, and the fake friends and bringing the wrong people into your life, the pros of it are the fact that you can live life on your own terms. Now, let's also be clear. Just because you have that level of abundance does not automatically make you happy. I can promise you that many of the people that I coach, as wealthy as they are very, very unhappy. So you want to think about happiness as something that you sort of attack directly, and then making money or having more resources is something that you attack for its own sake. Okay, here's what I'm saying by that. Here's what I mean by that, okay? So happiness in general, you'll kind of laugh at this explanation because I'm going to make it sound a little bit too simple. It basically just comes from meditation, forcing your brain into being gratitude mode, and make yourself laugh. That's pretty much like all happiness, okay? I'm actually serious though, okay? I'm actually serious. The reason why is because if you train yourself to meditate, if you train yourself to laugh, if you train yourself to be grateful, you find something in life that gives you fulfillment, and so on and so forth, and you're a giving, good person, that's what's going to make you happy, whether you're rich or poor. That's just the truth, right? Having that kind of money is less about being happy, per se. It's more just about the breadth of life experience. Like, I drove most of the country for 3 years, and I would not necessarily say that it made me happier. I probably was around equally happy as being at home. It was definitely a very powerful experience, but I wouldn't say that it made me, happy. Okay, I wouldn't say that me living in a fat crib in the Hollywood Hills makes me happy. But what I would say, even having an incredible social life or romantic life, I wouldn't say that it makes you happy. Okay, maybe for 20 minutes. Okay, it's like a positive sensation for about 20 minutes or whatever length you decide to do that. But what I'd say is that it gives a broad range of experiences. So in other words, this has to be understood. People will say that the whole point of life is to be happy. I'm not really sold on this idea that the whole point of life is to be happy. I think that the point of life is to be happy, but it's also to have a broad range of experiences that are meaningful, right? Like, there's a lot of things that I did that I definitely didn't feel happy when I was doing it at all. I didn't feel happy, but it was meaningful. It was interesting, right? A lot of experiences that I have had that are my favorite experiences, I was feeling very, very miserable during those experiences, but they're incredibly interesting. Let's say, for example, that you climb Mount Everest. There's actually tours that you could do. Again, when you're rich, the things you could do. There's tours that you could take where you could climb Mount Everest. There's actually so many people doing it now. It looks like freaking Disney World. People coming up and down it, right? And when you climb it, you're going to have altitude sickness. You're probably going to be really, really tired. You're probably going to be in a lot of pain. But imagine how incredibly fulfilling it would be to climb Mount Everest. It's not necessarily makes you happy, but it's very, very fulfilling. I've had a lot of experiences that definitely didn't make me happy. I didn't feel happy when I was doing it. I felt unhappy. But it was very, very interesting. And for that reason, I think they're worth having. Like, we got to get away from this happiness thing as this like be-all, end-all of life. I think happiness is kind of a fleeting emotional state. There should really be something in your mind that is conscious enough to be like, well, just because I don't have a bunch of dopamine and serotonin in my brain at this exact second, this is still an amazing experience. A lot of amazing, amazing experiences that you can have, even though you're feeling unhappy, okay? So make sure that you get that in your mind. So making money, to me, what it does is not so much that it makes you happy. It can add security and safety to your life. It can buy things that give you a good sensory experience, but it's more about broadening your experience. Say the word broadening your experience. Broadening your experience. So I think that having money allows you to broaden your experience. It means that you can actually see more of the world. And by the way, there's ways of seeing the world minimally. Like, I'm going to sort of decide where I fall on this eventually, because I'm not really sure what the exact best path is. I think there's pros and cons to different paths. But I sometimes wonder if at a young age, like what I would tell to my sons, if it would make more sense to get a car, get a tent, and go travel the whole country for dirt cheap when you're about 20. Because you could do it really cheap. I mean, the average person doesn't even know what the country looks like, which is scary. If you don't know what the country looks like, it's kind of scary. I'd recommend probably to every single one of you that if you could get a little bit of time off work, let's say that, for example, that you could move all your belongings into your parents' house and you could get a little bit of a run rate by having a couple $1,000 saved up, I would super recommend grabbing your car, learning getting an air mattress, getting a tent, and maybe during the summer when it's not too cold out, you could even do it in winter too. It's just a bit different, but summer would be easier, but you could do winter. But basically just going and seeing the whole country, going and seeing it by car. Most amazing thing I did in my whole life. Never done anything better in my whole life than seeing the country. It was amazing. Amazing. I'd love to do it again. It was amazing. Best thing I did in my whole entire life. You have no idea what you're missing. You have no idea what you're missing. No idea what you're missing. No idea what you're missing. But the main point being is like, it's that broadening of experiences that you can get, right? Somebody like, say, Ty Lopez, who I'm talking about, his pace of life, imagine the amount of growth that he's able to get. Imagine that you're learning one-on-one from the best teachers in the world, able to get the best nutritional supplements. Do you guys also realize it's about to get even crazier, right? Because you guys understand what's happening in modern medicine right now? Stem cells. So already, people that are wealthy can go and inject stem cells. Do you realize how much the gap between rich and poor is about to get crazier and crazier and crazier? When you can literally inject stem cells? Now, by the way, there's a lot of weird ethics around this, right? I have a completely torn ACL right now, and so I've looked into stem cells because I've thought about it, right? And there's a lot of pretty crazy ethics about this. Now, if you want to know about stem cells, my kids, when they're born, we have the option to save the umbilical cord, and we pay about $3,000 to save the umbilical cord, okay? And what happens is that saves this big wealth of stem cells, which then later in life, as stem cell technology improves, theoretically, it probably will. Who knows what condition the world will be in by then. But in theory, if stem cell technology were to improve, they're now able to take those stem cells and they can use it on themselves. We pay, a couple $1,000. Well, what happens is that a lot of parents that have kids can't afford the couple $1,000. I personally think the government should be paying for this. And I'm not, and believe me, I am far from somebody who thinks the government should be paying for things. But I think that this is the kind of thing where, I think that long term it'll save us money. And so I think it's kind of easy win. But I don't know, my kind of more freedom-oriented roots kind of question almost anything with government involvement. But nonetheless, I kind of lean towards, I kind of do wish the government would get involved. Because what's happening right now is that most parents can't even afford to pay the $3,000. And so what winds up happening is rich people just buy up these stem cells. And so now rich people can buy the baby's umbilical cord stem cells that the parents couldn't afford for their own children, and they could inject it in themselves. What's the ethics behind that? It's quite interesting, isn't it, right? I mean, it's one of those weird things where me choosing not to inject stem cells, I haven't done it yet, but me choosing not to inject stem cells, it doesn't fix the fact that kid didn't get their umbilical cord saved. It doesn't fix anything. And in fact, it could help me, and I could add a lot of value. It's really no harm. But from a more philosophical perspective of what you're contributing to, you're kind of contributing to that dynamic of people not saving their kids' stem cells. So it's this kind of a weird thing, right? And what it is that a stem cell from a baby, that's the most powerful one. They can also do something called PRP, where they take out your stem cells, but I'm 43 years old. So my stem cells are probably helpful, but it's not the same thing as a baby stem cell. And this is going to get more and more popular. You can read the Tony Robbins book. Anyone know the title? It's new. I've actually read it. It's the new one. What is it? Life Force. Life Force, yes, by Tony Robbins, and he talks about this. He had actually had a snowboarding accident over at Sun Valley. He blew out his shoulder, and he thought he was going to have to get surgery, and he wound up just shooting some stem cells in it and fixed it. It's completely insane. And there's a lot of other crazy stories about stem cells. But these stem cells are very, very expensive. There's also ones called exosomes or things like that that are very, very expensive. But look at the difference in lifestyle here, okay? When you're able now, all of a sudden, you're flying private, you're able to buy better, safer vehicles for if you get into an accident. You're able to afford supplements, health experts, stem cells. So now you're thinking more clearly, and you're also, your body has more vitality. You have more energy to go and be productive. Now, what also happens as you get more and more wealthy is that you start doing something called systems building. Say the word systems building. Systems building. And so what that means when you're building systems is, for example, let's say that when I was building my business, I was doing coaching and I was also going out and working on becoming better at what it is that I teach. But then at the same time, I'm also having to come back and maybe, do sales copywriting or do marketing campaigns or things like that. Well, now I can't be out as much, right? So this was this kind of weird thing when I was doing my older business because most of the other companies, the coaches didn't have as much time to work on their real skill set. They just didn't have as much time to work on their public speaking and their actual social skills because what would happen to them is they would wind up, here's the kind of pattern most of the coaches that I saw got into. And I have empathy for this, by the way. I just didn't want to fall in this rut myself, but it's something that I observed. So what would happen to them is they would have a day job. And then as they're going about their day job, they would start doing a little bit of social skills building at nighttime or whatever. They'd start to get a little bit of results. Maybe they'd publish a couple of free articles about it. They'd actually get a little bit of interest in their articles. Then what would happen is they'd realize, okay, wait a minute, I'm making like $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. Maybe I can quit my day job and I can actually do this coaching thing full time. But when you only have $1,000 or $2,000 a month, or maybe even less than $5,000 or whatever, you're still doing all of your own marketing campaigns. And what starts to happen is that at one point, you really like going out and you like building your skills and you like getting better. Maybe you like doing a bit of public speaking. But at a certain point, what starts to happen is you kind of hit a point where you're like, man, I just got to pay the bills here. You know what I'm saying, right? And so they stop going out and they stop working on their skills. And they're a lot more focused on things like headlines, thumbnails, clickbait, marketing campaigns, doing less effort, and so on and so forth, right? This is why if you see a little bit of my path, where I wound up doing free events, like I've done free events for several decades now, it's completely insane, and my team's done them too. And the way that we did that was we had enough money running through the company that we could afford to lose money to go do a free event. But as a result, we get all these amazing videos of us working these big crowds. Then we get better public speaking skills. And also when you're doing these events, you also wind up workshopping and creating a lot of new content. So your content gets better. Then we'd actually have the time to do like really deep dive trainings that were not free, but they're more our premium trainings. And we'd actually go and do the premium trainings. And so a lot of the people in my team, if you remember, you guys have seen the level of talent that we've had on the team over the years, right? It's like kind of crazy. And that was because we have an in-house marketing team and we have in-house systems, literally that costs 8 figures a year to build out these back-end systems. And so what winds up happening is that then the coaches can focus on coaching and they can focus on public speaking and they can focus on building skill sets. And so if you remember during some of our big peaks in our business, you saw these incredible coaches. You're like, how is every coach this good? They're all, you might have your favorites, your least favorites, but it's like they're so good. And it was because we had the resources to do a lot of teaching. Right, so they didn't have to sit there working on, just marketing or just, keeping the lights on. I worked on that. It's pretty difficult. And so what would wind up happening is we could all just get better and better at what it is that we're doing. But then as a result, you also have people that are specialized in marketing. So then we're doing better in the marketing because we have really, really good marketing people. We have really, really good editors. So now you don't have this one coach that's doing the editing, the marketing, the teaching, but you can actually split it up. The marketers are getting better at doing marketing. The editors are getting better at doing editing. The accountants are getting better at doing accounting. The teachers are getting better at doing teaching. So what happens is as you get enough resources, you can then specialize. And by the time that you can specialize, that's also allowing you to just run laps around people, right? It got to the point in our old niche that I'd have people from the niche come up to me and say, I just give up. Like, how are you doing this? Like, I give up. Like, how are you possibly doing this, right? We had something like 85% of the niche. And why that happened? It was because we were so organized and locked in and firing on all cylinders. Now, we had a lot of problems inside, a lot. The big one is ego. And there's just a lot of ego when you see a lot of people get famous really quickly. You see a lot of people becoming millionaires really quickly. They tend to attribute it to themselves. They don't understand the team. They're on this kind of rocket ship ride. It gets addictive and so on and so forth. So it was kind of this thing where, You ever hear where they say that the one flaw in there's actually many flaws in capitalism, but they say the one flaw in capitalism is that it works so well, it creates so much prosperity that it actually collapses in on itself, right? Because people get so rich that they wind up just becoming spoiled and they wind up becoming egotistical, and then they get hooked on the bread and circus and entertainment, and then the system collapses and goes into communism because it becomes hell in a handbasket. That happened a little bit definitely in my own organization, to where you had so many people getting so rich and so famous so quick. Rich is of course subjective, and famous is subjective, but certainly compared to the average person, I mean, people without even a college degree are just on this rocket ship, but then, you see egos get involved and conflict, and I'm kind of like a peacemaker by nature, so I'm in there just trying to make peace, and, I kind of went through that experience. It definitely taught me a lot about running teams and, things like that. I learned a tremendous amount through that experience. It was really, really crazy. Made me hesitant to want to run a big team of coaches again, to be honest with you. I've just been enjoying kind of doing my own coaching. It's actually been really fun to just kind of focus on my own stuff, because back then I was always building up other people and doing my own stuff, so it's been kind of fun. But at the same time, I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. I think what we created is historical. Like, we literally created almost like NWA. Like, they all have their solo acts, but like those albums are like so incredibly powerful. And I feel like us as a team, we created something powerful. My next act of what I'm going to create, I've already created several years of it that you guys haven't seen, is really the next level, even beyond all that we have created. But you guys will see that come out later, okay? I kind of feel like it's this kind of weird thing where like people kind of realize my potential as a teacher, and they want, like, there's something where like you kind of want to see me reach it. You know what I'm saying, right? It's like, I don't want to just see you half step, Owen. Like, you're that dude, Owen. Go be that dude, But there comes a point where being that dude, the ascent is so hard that you've got to take it to like the next level. So as a kind of a side tangent, the way that I took it to the next level was I spent 3 years in the forest, literally just creating and creating and creating and creating and creating, and none of that content's out yet. So I created something that is like so far, like I wanted to create something that was befitting of a 20-year coach, befitting of somebody who's had the life experience that I have, and something that ultimately gives respect to how lucky I am to be in the position that I'm in. And so I feel like if you've been, kind of like they say with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing, like I feel like it's so rare that somebody would be in the position that I'm in, that they would even have the ability to kind of have the abstraction and the thought process to even create a lot of this stuff. So I thought to myself, like, I want to give my hardest punch. Like, I want to really, I want to not fall into the trap that almost every teacher at my age falls into and stagnate. I want to push myself to my absolute limit. But the challenge is, and this is what you're going to see when that content comes out, is it's going to be less popular but more impactful. It's going to be way, 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 way less popular and more impactful, because I feel like most of my earlier material, it was kind of meant for the initial part of the mountain climb, like it was more meant for down here, and there's just more people at this part of the mountain, and there's less people up here. But I wanted to create something in that series, which will come out probably, you'll see it coming out, soon enough, but I'm gonna edit it all, and I have to finish the last couple videos of it. But basically, I wanted to create something that was like a capstone for all the people that it's a smaller and smaller group, but for the people that stuck with me through the whole journey, for people who like really climbed the mountain with me, I wanted to create something that was so high level that it was something that the top people in the world would come to me and say, bro, I get it that nobody understands what you're talking about. I get it that people probably unsubscribed from you to put this out. I can't believe that you did this, and thank you. Like, that was what I was trying to create, was like, I wanted to create something for people like me who have really pushed hard through their whole career, and something that would really bring it together in a very, very powerful way for people that went to the top of the mountain, and to show them what the next level is. And so I think there's very, very few people that have that ability to do that. To be honest, and this is not a criticism, but I really, really love Tony Robbins. He's actually a great hero of mine. Tony's a tremendous hero of mine, and somebody who I idolize in many ways. But I just wish, as a fan of Tony's, and this is just like a personal request, but he's got to live his life. He can't pander to me. I'm like just some guy, right? But I really wish that Tony would have done something like that. Like, can you guys sense, like, can you guys feel from Tony that like there's more in the tank that he's not showing? Can you guys see that? Like, say you go to like Unleash the Power Within, Date with Destiny, Business Mastery, like these are amazing programs. I'd recommend them. I took tremendous value from them. I'm a huge Tony Robbins fan. I'm not a Tony Robbins fan, I'm a Tony Robbins stan. But like, if I had one wish for Tony, I'd like to just like literally like link up with him and like just take him out, like out of the city, into the woods for like a year, and just sit there writing, creating. His knowledge runs so deep, and he'll die. And I don't know if the full extent of his knowledge will be, will outlast him, right? I know that he has a lot of recordings from all of his different events, and I think that's very, very powerful, but I'd be curious how they're going to curate that, right? Somebody who's a little bit of a wacky teacher, obviously, was Osho. You guys know Osho? He was in that documentary Wild Wild Country. They portrayed him in a very negative light, and I understand a lot of that criticism, and that's fair enough, but I also feel that a lot of like great teachers that are ahead of their time do tend to get portrayed in a negative light in the mainstream. He was also doing a lot of, things that were not the best, so it is what it is, but that doesn't mean that a lot of his message wasn't very powerful. And actually, if you look at Osho, his sort of acolytes really did a great job of curating his material. You ever seen all these books by Osho where it's like intelligence, creativity, like courage, all these different books? That wasn't Osho writing those guys. This was his, the people who loved him curating this content for him so that people years and years later could look at it. I don't agree with everything Osho says. I think a lot of it's like totally nuts. And I think a lot of things he does is totally nuts. But I can still see through, kind of parse out the stuff that helps me. And it's very, very powerful. So that was another really, really big thing that I wanted to do in my career. Like if you even see us doing these recordings, was I wanted to really curate the knowledge that I saw coming out of it. This was actually my biggest challenge with coaches that I work with was usually they would come in for the first 3 to 5 years in that mindset where they really, really want to push the envelope and they really, really want to be creative and they really, really want to leave a legacy. But I found that at a certain point, it's usually when people kind of get to the point, maybe they want a family, maybe they want to settle down, where they lose that drive to be very creative and to innovate, and they kind of become complacent, and they do it for a number of different reasons. They do it because it just gets too hard. Actually, do you want me to tell you why they do it? They do it because they give up on you, is really why they do it. They do it because they give up on you, and you want to know why they give up on you? Because you give up on you. They give up on you because you give up on you. There comes a point for most coaches where they go into it feeling like these people can change. They look at examples of people changing. And over time, the coach gets demoralized or the guru gets demoralized when they see people that just refuse to change. Or they see people that did change for a bit and then they snap back. And you start to think of it like, are these people just spaced out? Like, do they really just not want this? So I've seen a lot of people that are at a very high level to where they just lose, they lose the belief and they lose the sort of motivation that anybody's going to really change. And so as a result, they become a lot more pragmatic and they feel that they're being more realistic. They're like, I'm being more realistic. Like, look, they're going to change a little bit. They're probably not going to change a lot. So, I should probably make the material very accessible, broadly accessible, make it relatable, don't push the envelope. Plus, if I'm going to be really honest with you guys, and I'm saying this more for the future than anything that's going to happen now, but maybe in 200-300 years in the future, people could look back at this video. You really do get punished for making like the option for incredible transformations. You really do. And the reason why you do, and this is going to sound very, very abstract, and it makes me sad to say it, you can probably tell. When people are on the verge of very, very serious transformation, they have these really, really brutal snapbacks, and they often get very, very bitter. So like if you show somebody the path to really, really get to the promised land, it's actually less common that they'll thank you. Like if you show somebody how to have success at the highest level, they usually can't keep it. They usually self-sabotage it, they ruin it, and then they blame you after they ruin it. So, you get to the point as a coach, like if you guys want to know what the main marketers are saying behind your backs, literally, like the top marketers in the world, they're saying things like, help, and again, I hope nobody cuts this out of context and makes it suggest that I'm saying this, because I'm saying the opposite of it. I'm that fool and that idiot. But basically, they say, show them how to change a little bit, but don't go too far or they'll quit. They actually, the top marketers, like, so there's marketers that train the coaches, okay? These are the marketers who train the coaches. And the marketers who train the coaches explain, if you push them too far, they will drop you. So what they would say is, you're supposed to kind of like help them change like 10 or 20 or 30%, but that's kind of it. In other words, here's the main key. You're supposed to keep them inside the golden jail, or take the jail and turn it into a golden jail, but don't show them how to get out of the jail, is what those marketers say. I'm not saying that. It scares me that people will cut this and say that I'm teaching to do that. I'm teaching the opposite of that. I'm showing what I hate, okay? Now, in every generation, there's a couple people that are like that are idealists, like me, an idealist, that are going to be made to suffer for this, that are going to be persecuted for this, and it's not going to end well for them, okay? It's not going to end well. And nothing that I do, as far as teaching my very, very best content, will benefit me at a surface level in any way, shape, or form, okay? This is why I have very, very strong spiritual convictions. I do what I do because I believe the rewards come after you die. I don't believe that you get rewarded for this kind of thing while you're alive. I think that it's when you die, that's when you get the reward. That's what I truly believe. I think that everybody else has it wrong. Everybody who I see doing that, I think they have it wrong. I think they're gonna really regret it. I think it's the biggest mistake they can make. But they're only able to see what's directly in front of their face, of what's here. They think that I'm crazy for saying that. They don't understand what I've seen. They don't understand what I've known. They don't understand the degrees of awareness that you can get when you keep going down the path. And even in saying that, they're not gonna listen. And that's okay. You can't change the whole world, okay? You just can't. You can only change people when there's an opening. And there's not a lot of openings. I believe what I believe with great conviction. I've seen things that are very unrelatable, things that if I share are too weird. So I know what I know. But I'll tell you this, it's a very, very big challenge to create that kind of deep, profound change. Now, what is it that I think is so important about deep and profound change? Why do I think it's so valuable? I believe that in the same way that we're seeing the rich get richer and the poor get poor, I think that we're about to go into a reality of artificial intelligence that is going to change everything we know. We might see this in our lifetime, or it might be our kids' lifetime. But I believe that what's about to happen is that human beings and the value of human beings is about to be put into question. And the reason why I believe that that's going to be put into question is because we make ourselves easy targets, okay? And as long as we're sitting there in our little egos and lazy and floating turds and asleep and fighting with each other, and, you can't even have the best freaking country without being on the verge of a freaking civil war, well then, we're already in a cold one, already, by the way, and could go hot, I hope not. I hope not. It kind of already has in spurts. Well then, when AI is looking at human beings, what are we good for? It's basically just biomass. It's like a zoo animal. Keep a couple around for good old days, or even just store the DNA. You can just breed them out later if you need to, if you have some reason to do that. It's like some weird, it would have as much value for us as we would have for the bacteria that we came out of. And that's real. And you're sitting, and as I'm saying it, it sounds crazy. It's like, that can't happen. No, what? No, that's called normalcy bias. That's probably what's gonna happen. So in many ways, what is it that differentiates a human being from AI? Well, what's the number one thing that differentiates us? There's the number one thing. The soul. It's the soul, right? So I think a lot of future self-development is gonna have to be centered around what is the soul. And really, when you drill down on a lot of this, you can actually see what that is. But it's the kind of thing where it's a lot of abstraction. It's very, very, very abstract. And so I've gone into this in that backlog series that I created in the past couple years. I don't just do the new age thing, like look at the crystal, so I'm not doing any of that. I'm like a university student, actually using my liberal arts degree for something productive, believe it or not, and I break it down chunk by chunk by chunk by chunk by chunk over about 52 videos. I just break the whole thing down, and each video connects in with the last. And I start into that series showing a lot of the kind of OG ideas, to kind of hook you in a little bit with what you know, and then I kind of build it up. A little bit like what I did in yesterday's talk, where I start off with practical stuff, then I built it up. I do that in the video series. But that's something that I think people have to realize is a lot of what I talked about yesterday as far as object constancy, as far as not just being this sort of little piece of human flesh that has RAS flips all the time, like what we just talked about yesterday. Not just being this easily manipulated floating turd, lazy, not awakening your potentials. I think a lot of the future of personal growth is going to be going to the very, 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 very end. I think a lot of the future of personal growth is going to be fully actualizing your potential. And I don't think we're going to be able to get away with it. It's just my personal opinion. I don't think that we're going to be allowed to function at the paradigm that we're currently functioning at when you're competing with AI. I just don't think that you are at all. They're already getting the point. I'm reading about this. I'm not sure how real it is. I just read about it, where kids are now able to just press an AI button to write their essay for them. So what happens when you remove all of the evolutionary pressure off of human beings? So now you're not growing. And what also happens when we forget about even the main purpose that we're here? What happens when you plug people into a better version of the metaverse that is not the cheesy version where it's like a phone held in by an eye goggle, but is actually so real that we don't know if we're not in it now. Right? I wonder why we're like this only planet with like nothing else around. It could be that, you know my point. So, where are we? We don't even know. And so, I don't mean to freak you out. I actually have an idea of where we are. I don't think it's another metaverse, but my point is that could be. And so what begins to happen as that becomes more popular, now you've got stem cells running around. You've got little microscopic, robot, little tiny things that you can inject in the body that go in and check for different health components. And by the way, you want to know the other big battle for the future that's going to be huge? Centralized control versus freedom. And that's going to be massive because what do you do about like, do you want to have mass surveillance or not? I say no. But what do you do when the average idiot can take a 3D printer, print something the size of half of a BB, and like the movie Dune, fly it out into someone's head and have it blow up? And that may happen. So how do you have freedom in an environment like that? How do you have freedom in an environment where some idiot can release a virus and they know that it shuts down the whole world's economy? And they can just go get it. They're like, look at that. And they can go do that. Well, then that starts becoming justification for mass surveillance. You're already under it. Literally, we're talking about mass surveillance now. You'll open your phone later, and in your YouTube feed, your social media feed, mass surveillance, 10 funky truths. So you're already being eased into it, right? Human beings, if this was 20, 30 years ago, if there was mass surveillance going on, there would have been protests and all this. But if you just put it on like a cool phone, feeds you the videos you like, you're like, oh, it's all good. That's true, by the way, what I just said. Don't let that slip past your mind. The things that we'll go along with, things that we would have fought 20, 30 years ago that we'll go along with now just because it's like packaged in something kind of fun, right? Or you could package something in a movement that people agree with or whatever, right? Something trendy. People have realized that. People have realized that you could make like some horrible organization, package it in something that sounds really cool that you get associated to, and they could do anything. People realize that because as people get more and more dumbed down, they're unaware of this stuff going on. They don't want to look at it. They just want to feel good. This is also the major problem with when you make state your God, when you make comfort your God, when you make emotions your God, when you make even survival your God. And when you have a whole society of people that are in that mode where what they care about largely is surviving, being comfortable, having clout, and that's mostly where their head is at, when you have that degree of prosperity that you can live like that, that society is basically doomed. So it's pretty, the entire value system is going to have to be relooked at. And, I can start conversations here. I can post this. This would be a very unpopular video, probably do very low views. Nobody really wants to hear this, but a couple people will hear it. But then it even gets to the point of like, out of all the people that hear it, are they really going to do anything? Right? Okay, so you hear these kind of things, but what do you do about it? Where do you start? What do you do? And so it gets to the point where it's like, you can go talk about this stuff, but does it really even make any difference? Or should I maybe be moving off of these topics and into very, very basic stuff where I can make more cash? Because these topics don't make cash. So it's one of these things where you're now kind of like looking at this, like, am I just being this idiot idealist and I'm just an idiot? And a lot of people actually that are quite wealthy, they actually view it as a spiritual deficiency. They would see what I'm doing as me having a savior complex. Me trying to save people and having a savior complex. And I definitely do. I do. I don't know what it is, but there's always been something in me where I see people's potential. I see what people are capable of. I see who they could become. I see what I think that the enjoyment of life that they could have and the experience of life they could have, and I want that for them. And I tend to grab people and I try to like shake them and try to, show them that potential. What I've learned over time is that somebody has to genuinely want it. If you put somebody in that position where they'd benefit from that, usually by the end of it, you could have literally brought them around the whole world, helped them to make a ton of money, helped them to change their whole lives. But at the end of it, they'll be like, going around the world sucks. I don't care about the money that you showed me how to make. I would have just figured out it by myself, and I hate you. And I've seen a lot of stuff like that. It's just very, very common. So you can't force people. You can't make people do something, okay? So let's go back then into that upward spiral concept, okay? Now, with what I just talked about here, can you see how with things like AI, let me finish the last point, button that point, and then the next point. The idea of centralization that's going to be a big battle fought in the future is with that much ability to destroy ourselves, is there going to be mass surveillance? But the problem is that without some kind of mass surveillance, there could be too much capacity to harm ourselves. But with mass surveillance, you get these freaking psychos in charge of it all. You get these nut jobs that are in charge of it all. And they have so much power that what winds up happening is that you can't even dislodge the power of it. So it's insane. There's so much centralized power that you could do nothing. It's already happening now. I can't even give specific examples if I want to release this. Let that land. I can't even just say it. Let that land. You're in America. I've got so much I want to share, and I can tell you 20, 30% and dance around the issue. Let that land with where you're at now. So then what winds up happening is that, you have, again, this rich get richer, poor get poor phenomenon, to where now what you're also going to be dealing with is people that are very, very wealthy will have control of AI, or have access to things like whether it be stem cells or whatever it would be, right? And so it's a bit of a weird situation that we're in, okay? We're going into a lot of weird stuff. Now, if you remember with Amazon, when that was first coming out, at first it looked like, the internet was going to pop, and there was this big wave. Then they realized it was a bubble, and all the stocks crashed, and the internet's not going to take over. But then it did. So you're going to see the same thing in a lot of these areas that I'm talking about here. Same general kind of idea. And it's going to initially look like it's not going to pop off, and things are going to stay normal for a while. Then you're going to start seeing some of the weird things that you're already seeing from 2020 and beyond, and it's going to look weird, and you're not going to want to dig into it, and you're not going to want to think about it, and then it'll go back to normal for a bit, and a bit like a boa constrictor, kind of softening you up. It'll go tight, then it will go loose to make you relax, then a bit tighter, then loose, then a bit tighter, then loose, and then tighter, and you're going to see that. So that's a little scary. Let's go back in this idea of rich get richer, poor get poor. How can you be somebody who has a positive influence in something like this? Well, what I'd say is start small. Start small. So in other words, the first thing that you can do is break yourself out of the derp state. Okay, break yourself out of it. So for a lot of you here, if you're just starting, that could mean starting a small business. That could mean getting better social skills. That could mean, just beginning to carve out some small wins. Then, like I was talking about yesterday, and this talk is building on what we talked about yesterday, then you start building on those small wins. You start seeing where it messes you up. You start seeing how it can help you, and so on and so forth. But as you progress from there, now your psyche is beginning to evolve. Now your consciousness is beginning to come online. You're beginning to wake up, and things are getting better and better and better. So that's a good thing too. And then what could happen is that most of you won't make it on the other side, okay? Most of you will be sitting here in a number of years because we're at a free event right now, okay? At the paid events, I wouldn't say that. At a paid event, I'd assume about 2/3 of people are going to crush it. But at a free event, it's like maybe 2 to 5%. And so going from there, because just not a degree of investment in the process. So then, and we go a lot deeper in the paid ones as well. And then what winds up happening is that, you see most people won't get out of it and will continue to be in that pattern. But hey, at least you learned some cool self-help ideas. That's neat. Better than watching TV, probably. Then what will happen is that there's going to be some people who at least get to the point they start to enjoy life more. Like you can at least get to the point where you begin to enjoy life. You can travel, you have the money that you want. And then some people will get to the level that I talked about where maybe you've got the private jets, maybe you've got all the supplement, all that different stuff that I talked about, right? But then the last level of this is the very, very, very rare person. And the very, very, very rare person is the person who's actually willing to give up that stuff, realize that that became the golden jail. And it's the person who is more focused on their ascension spiritually than they are on just having the money. But I'm not talking about a Venice Beach crystal rubbing meditator. Okay? I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is somebody who has achieved personal mastery at a high level, is hyper influential, hyper competent, battle tested, aware, and can move the world. And then they've achieved that through their process of ascension, but then they realize at a certain point that the money is a limitation. And so then you realize, wait, I am caught inside of the golden jail. And so you need to understand what this is, okay? I'm going to try to drill it into your head the extent to which you are being punked, okay? You are being punked. Here's how they get you. At the lowest level, you're a derper, okay? You're now the derper. You're basically stuck paying off a college loan. You're stuck paying off crazy medical bills. You're basically intertwined in all the bigs, whether it's the big pharma, big education, whatever it would be, right? Paying off astronomical student loans, all these different things. I'm not even going to go too deep on it here. Big agriculture, feeding you a bunch of high fructose corn syrup, antibiotics, hormones, all this stuff, okay? So they're going to get you there. That's where they get most of us, right? Like 99% of us, they get us in that trap, right? Then maybe you get to be an entrepreneur. But, as they say about entrepreneurship, you can work any 24 hours in a day you want. Entrepreneurship gives you the freedom to work any 24 hours you want to. So now you're stuck in that trap. But see, where they get you at the next level trap is where you make the money, and now what you're doing is you're like that dude, it's like Steve from the power plant made some bling, right? Made some bank. So now you're sitting there at front row seats, at the Lakers game, right? You got your phone out. You're like, yo, we got the floor seats. Look at the fat crib. Like that. Okay? But now you are still a servant of the system, because what you're doing is it's like you're in the, like you're a gladiator in Rome, right? And then, the winningest gladiator maybe gets access to more women or a nice meal. And he's like, giving hope to the other people, in the gladiator dome that are enslaved. And so we never really get to the real win, do we? We never really get to the win. We think the win is absence of discomfort. We think the win is ego gratification. We think the win is money, whatever. But we never look at what is real freedom. That gets lost. And so we don't see what freedom is. We don't see what spiritual ascension is. And we never think of what happens after we die. And life just blows by so fast. Beard gets gray. Hair moves to your back. Oh yeah, I've had a hair transplant, guys. It's on my back. Okay, my nose and my ears. And then that gets worse. Your body goes into attrition, and is that the right word? Your body just starts getting older, and then you die. And we don't ever pause and say, what does it mean to have real freedom, right? Now, to really want real freedom, you've got to want that more than anything else in the world. Spiritually, to have a spiritual awakening, you've got to want that more than anything else in the world. But the thing is that it's almost like the matrix system of controls. You've got to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into that which is controlling you. And the reward on the other side of that could be that you're somebody who became a billionaire, saw the emptiness of it, and realized there's this whole other level. And so that other level, what it comes down to, here's what some of those things are. One of them is having access to your will. So your will is not your own. Okay? Your will is not your own. Knowing that should terrify you, because that means you're not even a person in the way that we think about it. Your will is not your own. You can only achieve your will if you have independent access to flow states or transcendent states. As long as you do not have access to that center point, that grounding point, independently, as long as you don't, then you're now at a point where you are a puppet. So anytime you need something in order to be grounded or centered or emotionally fulfilled, you're a puppet. If you fear death, you're a puppet. It's normal to fear death. That's very, very normal. You shouldn't be ashamed of that. But you also have to beat it, okay? Now look, we all can get to a point, like, look, if I've got like this, I'm like transported in the movie Saw, I'm like about to go up this machine that's gonna saw me in half, and it's gonna take like a day and a half to kill me as it slowly chops me apart. Look, I'm gonna cry like a okay? I'd be like, mommy, okay? I'm not saying that like you have to be superhuman, but I'm just making the point that as a general day-to-day operation, you have to come into awareness of your death, and you have to come into alignment with your death. This is also gonna make you feel a little bit disconnected from reality, but also more connected to reality simultaneously, because it's gonna make you feel a little bit more like a ghost and less like a person, and yet a ghost is actually closer to what you are. So it's a weird thing where you're gonna feel more disconnected and less disconnected at the same time. Then from there, this also allows you to have discernment. So most people have a parasitic consciousness on the brain. We've talked about that this weekend. And so what happens is there's a range of information that they can even let in. There's a limited range of data that you have access to when your will is not your own, and when you don't have independent access to a flow state. So this is also the kind of thing that what drives you at a higher level has to change. What drives you at the highest levels is not just gonna be more achievement, it's who you're becoming through that process of achievement. What's gonna drive you at the highest level is not gonna be, the next win. What's gonna drive you is how much you become more grounded. Basically the challenges become the gym for your awakening. Okay, so in other words, you get harder, you get more pain, you get more challenges, and then those challenges, what they do is you will be forced to act from a place of pain in your life, okay? And so it's that ability to stay centered and to act competently while in that pain that is gonna actually take you to a whole other level. Here's some other ones that are gonna challenge you. Big one for me, people will do horrible things to you. And it is the ability, horribly exploitative. The most close people that you'll have in your life will viciously stab you in the back at different points, especially if you build a lot of value for yourself, because then there's a lot to take. And so what'll happen is you will have people do things that are so utterly small-minded and pathetic and self-centered to the point that it's not in any way fair. And after they do it, they will demonize you, because they can't handle what they did. So they will take all the beauty that you fed into something, okay? And they'll take that and they'll distort it and they'll demonize you. And that will challenge your ability to find forgiveness, and that will challenge your ability to have unconditional love for people, okay? Now, why is forgiveness or unconditional love such a major part in the gospel? Why is it such a major part in Jesus' teachings? Why is it such an important part for your soul? Because anytime that you're angry at somebody, that is reinforcing that you're identified with the physical body. If you viewed yourself as invincible, as indestructible, as eternal, would you be easily offended? Like right now, if you had $1 billion and every single supermodel wanted to be your friend, let's just say that, and everything was going on like that, would you ever care? Would you ever really care if someone acted bad? So you'd have a different mental point of orientation towards people who did you dirty. You'd say, yeah, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. In fact, I was very, very lucky to be in a position to go through pain, to allow myself to wake up so that I could even understand what they're doing, and that I'm very, very lucky that I don't do that. Thank God I'm not them. Thank God I don't do things like that. Their punishment is in their total decline. They may look like they're winning when they do these things to you. They're not. I have consistently watched as people who did things like this, consistently, when they behaved in that manner, they sold their soul to the devil. And you'll see this again and again and again. Okay, when people have done things like this, I've never seen it to where they do this nasty thing and then they go on and their life's just awesome. What I've consistently seen is they get weirder, they get more trapped in their head, they get drug habits, they turn very negative, they don't know up from down. So they will pay the price. You don't need to pay the price. Okay, in the Gospels, what's it say? It says, don't just have love for the people who are good to you. You know, even a criminal can have love for people that are good to them. That doesn't make you stand out. It's when you love somebody who did you wrong. Because it's the anger and the opposition towards that person that embeds you in your ego and embeds you in the consciousness of the body. So one of the great things that you can do in life is find someone who's been very cruel to you and objectified you and discarded you like a freaking Kleenex. Like they blew their snot and threw it away. And as a human being, they did that to you. And they didn't care at all. And that puts in your head feeling worthless, feeling like scum. And you trusted them, and you poured into them, but they didn't care, okay? Because it was easier for them to blow you like a Kleenex and throw you over, okay? Like a chicken wing where you didn't even eat all the chicken. You're like, I've got most of it, gone, garbage. And people will do that to you. And I had this happen to me recently, and I'll tell you, I felt so angry. And that anger, because I'm used to being purified, I'm never mad at anybody. I get a little salty, when you're coming at me, and I shake that off so fast. And I felt it was somebody who I'd poured into more than maybe anybody in my life. And what happened was I could feel that anger, and I had to literally, and I could feel the poison in me. I'd feel my leg twitching, things like, my heart was racing. I'm like, what is this in me? And I'm like, oh, I'm like a regular person now, right? I'm like a regular person who's just mad. This sucks. And the thing with me is that all of the abilities that you see me possessing, that comes from being clean in my mind, largely at least. Okay, I've still got a long way to go. It's probably an exaggeration, but moving in a direction of being cleaner. So what happens is that when you wash all this filth out of your brain, then what happens is that you have, like right now, I'm not mic'd on speakers. Like these speakers, that's not the speaker. Hey, what's up? That's not the speaker. I've got them here for other speakers. I use them on occasion myself. I'm able to harness energy like this and free associative skills and all these other old things you used to see me do, a little crazy. That came from consistently clearing out my mind of anger, of hatred, of disappointment, of victimology. Clean it out. So in that process of cleaning it out, it really took someone who I love more than anybody in the world, to be honest with you, to really, really give it to me. For me to that's what it honestly took, for me to feel that. I've never let that get that under my skin. I've always cleaned it out, but that's what it took. And I could feel what it's doing. And that's what taught me what it's doing to you. Because you're all doing that. And I know you are. And I actually hadn't been, because I just worked on it. And I understood it. So that I understood it intuitively because of all the work that I did. But the average person doesn't. I know most of you don't get this. You've got to forgive people. So you're going to get challenged in life with people doing wrong to you, and it's going to challenge you to clear that out. It's a poison that's inside of you. Okay? And so you're going to have a number of these different challenges. These challenges could be things like feeling lazy and overcoming laziness. It could be falling into simple-minded thinking like us versus them, tribal type thinking, separation-based thinking, easy truths, not doing your own research on things, or doing your own research, but it's some counterculture research that's equally crazy, but you want to feel unique and not researching that. So it's one of these things where over time, the grind that you're on or the journey that you're on is going to challenge you to do those things. Okay, it's going to bring these dilemmas to your table. Okay, and some of these dilemmas, by the way, are going to be incredibly complicated. There's going to be moral and ethical dilemmas that you're going to face in your life that are going to be they're going to be total quagmires, and they're going to overwhelm you to the point that you shut down. Okay, it's going to scare you, it's going to overwhelm you, and it's going to be a freaking nightmare. And those are going to come at you as well. Situations where, maybe, people are attacking you. Do you forgive? Do you defend? Do you speak back? Things like that. Like one of my big values is I don't trash talk people. And so, I've had experiences where people say, what's your opinion on this? And it's very, very easy to stick to your guns when, nobody's trashing you. But it's very, very hard when people are lying flat out and you want to say something about it. And that's going to challenge your convictions. Now, you can hear this in a seminar room when it's not happening to you. Okay, and you're like, oh, it's obvious, stick to your convictions. But when it's happening to you, and then you're even seeing people that are gullible getting sucked into it, you're like, well, should I address this for people that are gullible? Maybe I'm being too, high-minded and this isn't relatable. But then what you do, and here's a little practical piece for you, you go into your body and you ask yourself, how does this make me feel? And is this adding to me being clean, or is this me identifying with the ego, identifying in the physical body in a fear state? And that said, though, sometimes you also got to fight, right? What if you're a politician? What if I was in politics and I want to make my opinion known about a political issue? Well, then maybe you've got to dig in and go to war, right? So these are these weird ethical dilemmas that you're going to deal with. These are going to come at you, and they're really, really going to strain you intellectually, spiritually, in your purpose of why you're here on earth. And what happens over time, what you're going to realize is that really what you're building while you're here is that core essence. Okay, you're building a core essence that will escape your body. That's just my personal opinion. It's going to escape your body. And so what is it that you're really cultivating through these various different processes? And part of that awakening absolutely can be meditation practices, prayer practices, renunciation, being in nature. But I also believe strongly that we're put into a physical body to challenge ourselves. And I believe that people at the highest levels can influence and move the world. They're able to look at the challenges of the physical world, and they're able to move through them with great discernment, with clarity of purpose, with efficiency, effectiveness, and getting done what you want to get done. Let's tie that back in with when you're just trying to make an extra $1,000 a month. When you're new to this and you're just trying to make an extra $1,000 a month, maybe you've been looking at too much attention span depleting social media. Maybe you've been smoking a bunch of weed. Maybe you've been getting distracted. Maybe you've been in this sort of negative headspace. Well then, to make that extra $1,000 a month, what you've got to do is you've got to actually challenge yourself to actually not look at TikTok, not to smoke weed, not to waste your time. Now, at a high level, this looks like a joke. Are you serious? Really? This is hard? We're even talking about this? Like, to somebody at a high level, that would be like saying, put your foot here, put down your heel, roll the heel, up on the toe, move forward. And me even making a seminar about it is like, it'd almost be like, this is how it would feel to me, okay? All right, guys, you're gonna take a step. Like, exciting myself artificially to get people excited, right? Like, then you're gonna use your heel, and your heel's gonna touch the ground, and you're gonna let it roll a little forward. That's how it feels to me when I'm trying to show somebody, how to make a couple $100,000. That's how it feels to me. But if you're new, you don't know how to do that. So as a result of that, that's really hard. But the truth is, there's levels way, way, way beyond anybody who's on this earth, in my opinion, that we would be looked at as a joke, even at the highest level here. A guy like an Elon Musk would be looked at as a joke. So really, you want to think of it like you're a baby just beginning to awaken. We've got to stop thinking of ourselves as adults, and we got to go back to thinking of ourselves as babies, in my view. Okay? Stop thinking of yourself as an adult. Start thinking of yourself as a baby. And so once you do that, then what you say to yourself is, what is my version of a gym that I'm building myself up from? Maybe it's, at a new level, no more weed. Oh, okay? Maybe it would be no more TikTok. Whoa. If you want to watch TikTok, watch something educational or limited, that's fine. It's okay to have a little hobby and look at a couple things. But that app is designed to burn down your time and to deplete attention span, pandering to you at the highest level. Remember I said that when you're making those billions of dollars, at a certain point you say, wait a minute, am I just in a golden jail? Imagine you're a billionaire that created TikTok. So now what's happened is that you're getting paid all this money, but what are you feeding? You're feeding the satanic entertainment system. So you're just feeding the system. You're not rejecting the system. So what does it matter that you made money doing that? What does it matter? What, you get 50 years of having some money? Probably still plenty of stress. Probably still unhappy most of the time. What'd you build? So That's debatable what I said about TikTok because there's probably a lot of education on there as well. It's debatable. It kind of is one of those things that depends on how it's used. So I'm probably demonizing it a little bit. I'd like to actually retract that a tad, but you get my general point of what I'm saying, right? These are debatable, I mean, at least it's curated information compared to just network television. So I'll give it some credit. I'm demonizing it. But anyway, the point being is that it's a mixed bag, and let's say that you make a bunch of money doing that. Go look at these people. Go look at them. Have you seen these people? Go look at them. We view them in America as so heroic. The heroic entrepreneur. A lot of these are just like regular folks that want regular things that either stumbled into it or they are just very, very transactional in their mentality. They're actually very asleep and transactional in their mentality. And so that's not taking away from all the incredible entrepreneurs as well. There's a great many of them. But go look at them. Go look at like the typical owner of, say, an NBA basketball team or an NFL team. Ask yourself if that's who you'd really want to become. So, there's elements of it that I think they're doing that's amazing. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of elements that are amazing. Let's not throw the baby with the bathwater. Everybody's a mix. I'm not even who you want to become, But I'm just making the point that, like, ask yourself questions like this. Like, what am I really shooting at here? Start asking yourself a question. So then from there, I'd like you to think about it within a context of what is your soul becoming? What is your soul becoming while here on earth? What is it becoming? At a core essence level, who are you becoming through the actions that you take? So what I'd recommend is, and the way that I think is a great way to live life personally, is that you use the reality of modern society for most of us. Some of us might, just go in the forest or something, right? There's validity there too. But I'm just saying for most of us, okay, for the vast majority of us, we utilize the modern society as a way to introduce ourselves to things like lateral thinking, things like focus, problem solving, self-discipline, motivation, getting off of these weird things that are depleting you, right? So much of base level success really comes down to just really, really auditing what it is that's defocusing you, what it is that's depleting you, whether it's belief systems, things that you're putting in your mind, things that you're putting in your body, things that you're smoking, and so on and so forth, right? So we start to look at these things, okay? That's a really, 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 really big part of it, is recognizing what is evil and creating boundaries. Say that we're creating boundaries.
Creating boundaries.
I know it's late. Say it louder.
Creating boundaries.
And say it louder.
Creating boundaries.
And one last time.
Creating boundaries.
Okay, the other one is saying no. Say that.
Say no.
Saying no.
No.
Saying no.
No.
Good. Okay? You're tired, right? Another thing that you might want to learn as you go along is how to keep yourself awake. So, yeah, it's one of these things where you're going to have to create boundaries. You're going to have to learn to say no. You're going to have to learn what it is that you're getting involved in. There's many, 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 many different things that you're getting yourself involved in. You have no clue what you're getting yourself involved into. And these things are going to chew you up, and they're going to spit you out. They're going to chew you up, and they're going to spit you out. Okay? And so, like I said, the kind of challenges that you're going to see at a lower level, the kind of challenges that you're going to get are how to not look at TikTok, how to not smoke weed. I mean, it's sad to think that for a lot of us, that's like where we're at. Like the main thing that you're going to work on this month is like not smoking weed, not watching TikTok. Yet ironically, if that's where you're at, that could be harder than a billionaire making their next billion. Because you haven't reclaimed enough consciousness to where you could do that easily. You're too much on autopilot, so you're not able to do that easily. So for example, for me, when I was first learning social skills, I had to build the willpower to go initiate conversations when I was scared. Again and 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 again for a long time, right? So, there was times that I was teaching programs and events when the company was struggling, when I was having personal issues, when I would sometimes do program formats that I had very little sleep when I was younger, very little sleep, things like that. I used to do this program where I do a training at nighttime, and then I go in at like 11. I train it till 6 in the morning, and then I go to an event at 11. I got to get up at 10, probably be in bed at 7, I'd sleep 7 till 10 a.m., I'd go run an event the whole day, and then I'd go out late that night teaching. That's when I'm younger. I don't think that's healthy. I probably would have thought of a different format. But that's kind of how I came up with it at the time. It was how I got through the original Great Recession back in the day. Became battle-tested in recessions. It was tough. So it's one of these things where, that's where you cultivate your will. Then you have different things that come at you. Learning how to get rid of different distractions. Learning how to find the gap in the dam. Learning how to find the crack in the dam. Learning how to figure out what your purpose is. Learning how to figure out what you're good at. Learning how to work outside of your day job. Whether that's you went to college, whether that's you didn't go to college, finding those hours outside your day job. Learning how to work till you're exhausted. Why do you think somebody like Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of his teaching is around hustle your face off, immigrant work ethic, things like that? Hustle till your face melts off your skull. Why is he saying that? Is that the end goal? No. He's saying that because for a lot of people that have kids, they've got a job, they might have 3 hours in a day left to themselves if they're lucky. And that was their hours for them. And they're going to have to sit there and they're going to have to somehow, some way find the edge to work through those hours. And it's going to be very, very, very tough to break out of cycle of scarcity, right? Instead of being that little tiny weed at the forest under the canopy, getting to the top where you get all that sun. Then as you grow that, maybe you build a business that makes you $1 million a year or something like that. And then that's going to have its own host of challenges. Dealing with other people, creating systems, not getting angry, not making unforced errors, handling the errors that you did make, and so on and so forth. Then as you get larger, now you're dealing with higher and higher degrees of pressure. It's going to require you to learn things like communication skills, how to have discernment, how to audit different things, how to think about different situations that are very, 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 very complicated. Then you're going to hit into situations where later you're going to realize, what is the legacy of what I built? And that's massive. What's the legacy of what you built? And you're going to have to face down that legacy if you make it to old age. And that's not going to be easy to do. Because as you get older and as you get closer to your death, you're going to have to look back at what you did. And you're going to know what you thought of that. And you're going to have to look back at mistakes that you made that you really, really regret. I mean, I've done plenty of that. Every year I have tremendous regret of mistakes that I've made. Ways that I could have treated people, ways that I treated myself, ways that I showed up for the people who I love and care about. I have so much regret about that, I could literally, if I were to think about it right now, I'd start crying. I'd start throwing up, literally, I'm giving a seminar. Because you should have that amount of regret. You know why? Because you're not a perfect person. And the difference, though, between a growing person and a non-growing person is that the growing person is actively assessing where they went wrong and they're owning up to it. Remember I talked recently about forgiveness, right? There's somebody that I really had to forgive. Well, what I did there was, this is somebody I'd poured more into than anyone in my whole life. But to find forgiveness, I had to spend a couple weeks, in a state of shock, literally sitting there thinking about their perspective. Why do they feel that way? How could they possibly have had that perception? And owning up to where the misunderstanding could occur and where perceptions could have come from. And some of it made sense. And taking full responsibility for that. By me doing that, I'm going to do better. Okay? I'm going to do better. But when people fail to do that, they don't do better. When they don't take ownership of their side of it, they can't apologize, they can't admit what they did wrong, and they just feel like the victim, they can't do better. That's very, very dark, by the way. When you can't take your portion of something that went sideways and that you put it all on somebody else, that is a very, very, very dark space to be coming from. And you will have to do a lot of drugs to medicate that, and you'll have to go into a reality of total self-deception to be able to medicate that, and you'll have to hide from reality. You'll have to hide from the people that would know the truth of it, and you'll have to just bury yourself. It's very, very sad. When I see somebody do things like that, I actually try to help pull them out of it because I care for them, and I actually try to pull them out of it. But sometimes you just can't, or they're not ready to be pulled out of it yet. But the truth is, as much as we can say, oh, they're not ready to be pulled out of it, think of all the areas in your life right now that you're not ready to be pulled out of. Think of all the different addictions and ego structures and blind spots in your mind that you're not ready to be pulled out of right now. It's pretty crazy. But that was a process that I went through to find forgiveness because I understood that forgiveness was for me. It was for cleansing myself, right? And so now we go into things like examining your legacy, examining your spiritual convictions, examining whether or not you have unconditional love for all human beings. Even if you draw boundaries on them, even if you don't let them act crazy and you stop them from doing things, can you have unconditional love? Why is unconditional love so important? because it means that you're identifying at a core essence level. If you viewed yourself as bigger than the situation, then you'd identify at a core essence level and you wouldn't be so angry, right? So it's one of these things where coming, like in states of scarcity, can you stay in a state of abundance would be another one, for example. Can you keep your abundance when in scarcity? Maybe you just had a breakup. Can you feel like you're still in abundance when you go out and hit the club? That'd be a simple example of that, right? When your business is struggling, do you still feel rich? That would be another example of that, right? Where these feelings of scarcity or poverty are perhaps real because they're there to indicate to you that you need to take some major action, but can you still maintain your overarching frame? Can you keep your cool under pressure? As you go up the chain, you're going to be under situations of so much pressure that you're going to sit there being like, I don't know if I could do this. Like, I don't know if I can make it through this situation and keep my cool. You're going to feel like you want to crawl into a ball. You're going to feel like you want to break down crying. You're going to feel like you don't have, what it is that you need to do. And you're going to have to go through and brave that situation. And you're going to have to breathe through it. And you're going to have to stay present. And you're going to have to keep faith. And there's a lot of different things in the Bible that talk about this. And that is why the Bible is a very complicated document. There's a lot of things in it that are very objectionable, and that also can turn people against it. But there's also a lot of core truths in the Bible. And the Bible is like the classic text of the midwit meme. You guys know the midwit meme? Yeah. Okay, the midwit meme. So it's this idea that like dumb people believe something a lot, mid-range intelligence people don't believe it, and then the smartest level people do believe it. Okay, it's called the midwit meme. So with the Bible, it's like, the midwit meme, it's like Noah's Ark, right? And it's just like, they just know that at like a story level. It's just like the story of something that happened. Then at the mid-level intelligence, it's like, there's no Noah's Ark. Dumb. And then at the highest levels of intelligence, you read a story like that and you understand what it means. Okay? And so, and in the Jesus part in the Bible, there's incredible deep truths. And some of those truths are things like, and some of them are very easy to digest, right? And some of them are hard to digest. The easy ones to digest, would be like, be a good person types of vibes, right? Be a good person. That's like, okay, cool, right? Harder ones to digest would be like, when he talks about, paraphrase, very, very, very paraphrase, he'll say things like, I'm not here just to make peace. I'm here to turn family members against each other. And you start saying, what does that mean, turning family members against each other? Ugh, right? And then, and I'll explain how I view that in a second. Or things like, you have to basically give it all up to follow me, right? And you're like, whoa, like this guy is a cult leader, like so on and so forth, right? And you should have questions like that. You actually should. If somebody reads that and is not questioning if that's the case, they're dumb. So, but when you dig deeper into it, what you realize, and you'll start to see this over time, is that there's a lot of very, very powerful karmic threads attached to our actions. And what you'll see is that if you are committed to the ascension of your spirit, then members of your family who are not, when they're in a darker headspace, they have parasites of the mind that are feeding off a lot of this dark stuff. You do too, by the way. I'm saying them to gently introduce you to what you have. And what I have, and what we all have, and we got to work through this, okay? So there's parasites in the mind. And so what starts to happen is that as you begin to ascend, they get uncomfortable around you. And they can feel, and they may actually, turn against you because you're actually you're committed to that ultimate process, right? And so that's what that could mean. Or things like total commitment, like this has to be your first priority. There's a lot of truth in that. And that's very, very hard to hear. Like this has to be your ultimate priority. And what you'll see is people take that in two different ways. One way is they say, okay, well, I'm just going to pray all day. So now what they've done is they've given up on the world entirely. They've given up their influence and their impact in the world so they can just sit there praying so that they can bury their head in the book. And I think that there's certain people that are born to do that. I was just at an Eckhart Tolle event the other day. I think he was born to just be this guy that meditates and talks. He's born to do that. There's some of us that are born, to just read the Bible all day and to teach it. There's like 1 in thousands or something that are born to do that. Whatever the case, I don't really know. I'm not in a position to know that. But I'm just saying but for most of us, that's also an easy way out. The spiritual path exclusively is got to be the easiest way out you could take. It's the marijuana it's like you're smoking weed, but in a way where now you get to feel holier than thou. Because you've now disengaged with the world and left the world to rot, and you've left the world to get taken over by the sick system, and you've given up your influence in the world. And what I've consistently seen with people that bury their head in meditation is that they're very, very present up until the point that anything disturbs their peace, and then they flip out and they have pain body attacks. They often even steal, and they're often very, very hypocritical. So it's one of these things where they're not choosing to engage with the world. It's very, very easy to say, don't get good at dating, just read the Bible. Yeah, you know the narrative they use with that one? They frame it that there's all these like promiscuous people out there, and that all that you'd have to do is just jump in this pit of promiscuity, and that everybody in there would just start humping you, right? But that you're stronger than that. You resisted the pit of promiscuity. You're stronger. And you sat in your house reading the book in isolation. And so that is a way to, it's a false way to feel superior than people, because you can tell yourself, okay, I'm superior now, I'm spiritual, and I'm reading the book. And then you can judge people and say, you're gonna burn, and so on and so forth, right? And as opposed to actually learning social skills and having to work on things like approach anxiety, social awareness, social calibration, learning how you're coming across, free associative humor, handling all the different dynamic, moving logistical puzzles, and all these different things that are incredibly, incredibly challenging. And maybe the hardest thing I ever did in my whole life, mostly because I had to figure out a lot of it for myself. I had great mentors, but I had to figure out a ton for the way I wanted to do it. So it's one of these things where there's, in the Bible, there's passages like, this has to be your priority, right? Harder for a rich man to get into heaven than a camel to go through the eye of a needle, or what's the exact quote? I always forget the exact quotes. I've read these things hundreds of times. And so it's that basic idea that like your connection just to money, if you're spiritually connected to that, you're more likely to do negative things. And in the process of doing those negative things, you're more likely to attach yourself to like bad energy. And as you attach yourself to bad energy, that messes with your will, messes with discernment, messes with independent access to flow. And then it starts to mess you up. And then when you're older, you look at your legacy and you have to rationalize it, which puts you deeper and deeper into your head in order to find a rationalization for that legacy. And it's not a really very nice place to be coming from. And it's kind of crazy to think about this because, there's the giant mass of people that are kind of stuck at the don't smoke weed and don't look at TikTok. And that's like where most people are stuck. But then there's positions of being stuck at higher levels of achievement, accomplishment, and spiritual growth. Then higher than that. But even at the level of somebody like an Elon Musk, Elon is going to have to do deep, deep soul searching as he gets older if he wants to come into his full potential. Doesn't matter that he did what he did. That's not enough, as much as it's easy for me to say that. It's still not enough for his full potential. Because at his highest potential, he's going to have to do deep, deep, deep self-examination, and he's going to have to really, really audit what it is that he's done, what it is that he's accomplished, what is his legacy that he's left behind. He's going to really, really deeply have to look at that in great detail. And if he fails to, that will be a limitation from his full potential. But he doesn't have to go to his full potential. And neither do any of you, and neither do I. You're not required to. But this is a conversation for you if you want to. And so the best way that I would put it to you is that if you want to go to your full potential, here's what it takes. You have to make a commitment to going all the way. Repeat after me, go all the way.
Go all the way.
Okay, it's very late. Louder.
Go all the way.
Louder.
Go all the way.
So for me, the place that I had to get to was I would rather be dead than not go all the way. Okay? I'd rather be dead. That's where I'm at. I'd rather be dead. Doesn't matter. Nothing else matters to me but going all the way. That's it. What I'm saying is probably a little bit more suited for somebody a little bit higher level. Somebody at a lower level, it could kind of scare them. It's kind of like a, age-appropriate audience here, right? If this freaks you out and you can't sleep tonight, just go to bed, okay? Don't panic. You may understand what I'm saying in more detail later. But the way that I think of it is it's like death. I view it as death. So to me, you have no choice but to go all the way. I don't view it as life is something to be lost. I view it that life is something to be achieved. Life is not something to be lost. Life is something to be achieved. If you don't have what I'm talking about here, you don't have a life. You're a puppet. So what do you really have? Comfort. You don't even get happiness because most people aren't even happy most of the time. Most of you in this room are not happy most of the time. So you don't even, and you're largely not even that comfortable most of the time. So you're hanging on to scraps. What are you even hanging on to? Scraps. It's fool's gold, okay? So this is what I was saying, right? When that guy gets rich, he goes down to the front row at the Lakers. Front row tickets, yo! That person is just another guard of the jail. You're the gladiator that got the 5 women and the nice steak, but you're still enslaved. So this is what it means to get out of the jail. Not just make a golden jail, but get out of the jail. And I'd recommend to you that you start thinking in great detail about what real freedom looks like. What does real freedom mean? What does real awakening look like? What does real awakening mean? What does that look like? And by the way, I'm not going to spend my whole career teaching this, okay? I've done a series of videos about this. I don't feel obligated to spend my whole life banging the drum, okay? I've got like that 50 video series that I did. I shot a number of seminars around the tail end of shooting that video series. I'm going to release them. I don't feel that I should have to say this again and again and again and again and again. You either want it or you don't. There's certain things, like maybe social skills or making some cash, where I feel like somebody's in a coping pattern and they just need endless videos on it or they're going to give up. Somebody who wants this doesn't need to hear it again and again and again and again, or they could watch the same video again and again. It's the kind of thing where you either get it or you don't. You either want it or you don't. You're either, part of that elect group that just gets it or you don't. There's some people that are born to get the stuff, and for whatever reason, I've never known why. I don't know why, but there's just some people that are just never meant to understand these topics. They're just not meant to. I don't know why. When I see it, I find it's so sad, I can't even look at it. But I have watched as some of the closest people in my life appear to be really waking up and appear to be really, really getting it. We're traveling together, we're experiencing life together, and they're beginning to see what it is that I'm shooting for. But that instead of going all the way, they're like, well, I'm not getting this. And it's like the lowest level garbage. But for them, because they want their slave food, they can't see where this is all going. They're just not ready. The foundation hasn't been built. The upper levels of awareness that seem to be forming are not actually there. They are just mirroring and matching what they're seeing, but they're not actually there. And so this is why I have personally recommended actually start making more cash, actually start getting better socially, actually start being happier, actually do some travel, actually get some of the foundational things you want. Because what I believe happens is that it's kind of like a Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of thing. And I think that what happens is that when you don't handle the basics, it's harder to see the upper levels. So my mistake, what I've done over the years, is I've tried to accelerate people's ability to have the basics, or maybe in some cases, I kind of just give it to them because I got the money to do it. So I just give it to them, right? I'm like, here, I got you handled. Let's go look at this. So, examples would be, here'd be a simple example of this. I traveled the country for about 2.5, I say 3 years, it was probably about 2.5. I'm planning a few more trips, so I kind of just round up to 3 because I'm going to do a couple more trips this year. And so in the process of doing this and traveling the whole country, I had awakenings that were so profound that I realized there was nothing more important in the world. I could see it. Being in nature at that level woke me up in ways that I never could have thought possible. The way that it feels when you're that deeply in nature, when you're at the point where you're ready to receive it. When you're not ready to receive it, it feels like nothing. It feels like boring. Stupid and boring. But at a higher level, the nature speaks to you. Okay, you become probably how Native Americans were. It speaks to you. You're being talked to by the nature, and not on mushrooms, okay? It's talking to you. But it's talking to you in a way that's very, very subtle. And it's cleaning things out in a way that's very, very subtle. And it's grounding you to reality in ways that are very, very subtle. One very obvious way that it transforms you, by the way, is that for most of you here that have never driven the country, you think of the country as like Austin, LA, New York. Like you think of it within this kind of human grid. When you actually drive the country and you see how these big open spaces with no humans, and then you spend time in those big open spaces, you realize how silly and dumb human beings look. And so now, say you're to go out to a bar or a club, you don't get, approach anxiety. You're not really worried about how you look because your entire sense of self is not absorbed in whatever opinion of you people at a bar or club have, or social media. You start to view social media as kind of silly. You start to view people as kind of silly. I've mentioned this before. My first experience with this was that I didn't really like nature that much. And I went out to up to West Yellowstone in Montana and spent some time in Wyoming. And so I drove back down from Wyoming down into Salt Lake City. And it was the first time that I ever wasn't happy to be back in the city. I didn't want to be in the city anymore. I actually view the city as disgusting. And by the way, Salt Lake is amazing. What incredible skiing. Great place to live. One of the best places you could live, honestly, because the proximity to skiing. They have Alta, Snowbird, and all these other ski hills around, and proximity to Zion and Bonneville Salt Flat, like all this crazy stuff in Utah. It's insane. If you live in Salt Lake, you get access to modern society, and you have driving distance, all this amazing stuff. Some of the best ski hills in the world, half an hour away. Best snow in the world, half an hour away. It's insane. So Salt Lake City, beautiful, right? But as I came back in the city, I'm like, I want to puke. This place is disgusting. I never knew that I was always in that. I didn't even know what clean energy was, right? So for somebody who talks about things like unconditional love or forgiveness or things like that, you can imagine what a revelation this was to me, that I began to find a center point that was clean. And many of my friends actually came on me on this journey. But I think for a lot of them, because I was kind of handling their finance for them in many cases, they were not actually built up to the point where their Maslow's hierarchy of needs was met. And then what happened was they can't fully absorb the experience. They like it, they get the Instagram photos, but they don't even know, they have no idea what we just experienced. So these are people that might have been around me for a year or two and never even knew who I was. I would try to explain it. Look. They're not seeing it. It's just they're not ready to receive that yet. So what I believe is that a lot of this is too abstract, okay? The highest levels of personal growth are simply too abstract. Then what would happen in cases like that, whereas then I find myself in these little bickering arguments like, but look, try to get, and then it's like, whose frame's gonna win? You see what I'm saying? You're getting dragged down in these low-level discussions all the time. And I find myself self-qualifying it, which is unhealthy for me. So it's one of these things where there's higher levels of awareness that you're going to get through these experiences, but you can only get them, in my opinion, when you've handled the basics. I think it's very, very hard to skip. There's some people that are spiritually gifted that can get it without handling the basics, but I think for a lot of us, we've just got to handle the basics, or else there's not real access to this higher level of knowledge. So that is what I encourage all of you to do. So now let's bring it back full circle. What we started this talk about was the trap and how, maybe social skills, you don't feel very good in your body, you go out, you get rejected, that makes you feel weirder, you go down and down and down. On the other hand, you could have an upward spiral, you go up and up and up. We talked about that. Now, likewise, we talked about it with money, right? You work a job, you owe certain bills, and you never have the chance to get ahead. Hard to find out what your purpose is, what you're really good at, you just don't get in that loop. So, from that standpoint, the first thing that many of you in this room should do is acknowledge the trap. Say that word after me, acknowledge the trap.
Acknowledge the trap.
You got to acknowledge the trap. As you begin to acknowledge the trap, now you can see how much you're ensnared in the sick system. Then what you've got to do is come up with hardcore game plans to get out of the trap, and you've got to view it like there's a freaking gun at your head. Don't go harm yourself, but view it metaphorically like there's a gun pointed at your head. Say, I will get out of this trap if it kills me, if I have to saw off my arm. Then what you want to do is you want to begin to take major action, and that's going to test you. As the action is testing you, then what you're going to see is through further and further tests, you're going to be forced to evolve. Now, the main thing to remember at each level of the test are the following things. One of them is very pragmatic, and some are abstract. The pragmatic one is you've got to look into history and into other people's lessons. So you've got to be able to learn from other people's mistakes. Some people are like, I just want to learn everything firsthand. I want to make my mistakes firsthand. You ever see that? No. No, 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 no. You're not learning fast enough. You have to have mentors, teachers. You have to be taking massive action. You're learning too slow. If you do real audits at the rate at which you're learning and the rate at which you're moving forward, it will consistently be too slow to get to where you're trying to go. You've got to raise the rate at which you're learning, raise your speed, raise efficiency, build out systems. You got to look at everything, okay? So that's the first thing, is you've got to learn from other people's mistakes. You've got to learn from mentors. You've got to learn from experts, et cetera, et cetera. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck. Now, the next thing that you're going to have to do is, like they would say in spiritual work, you put the creator before the creation. In other words, maintain a high level of gratitude in spite of these challenges. Okay, say, be grateful.
Be grateful.
Be grateful, what does that mean? It means that as you're going into pain based on the challenges, you don't allow this to beat down your sense of gratitude. The other one is stay present. Say that.
Stay present.
Okay. So in other words, you want to be marshaling high vibe solutions. Win-win, high vibe solutions. The other one I'm going to say is face reality. Say that.
Face reality.
So that means that you've got to just face reality for what it is. And that's tough. Okay, but face reality for what it is. Know what it is that you're dealing with. Now, the next one is do it for the highest good. Say that.
Do it for the highest good.
Okay, doing it for the highest good, it means that you've got that North Star principle. Where I have seen almost all of my friends mess up, they've truly messed up. And I've watched so many of my friends give up. Is that they don't do it for the highest good, that's not their North Star, and as a result, motivation runs short. You will consistently see people that are not doing it for the highest good that go back to drugs. Consistently, people that aren't doing the highest good go back to weed. The weed makes them dumb. They're drinking, makes them dumb. They start making little small errors. Those errors compound. They get involved with the wrong friends, get around the wrong people, and fail to realize who is actually their best friend. They will not recognize who is there to help them anymore because the parasite comes back in the mind. They can't see who their friends are. They can't see the bigger picture. They become myopic. There's this giant parade outside, but all they see is a little smudge on the window. And they go, the smudge, the smudge, the smudge, the smudge, smudge. And you're going, the $1 million parade. I can't enjoy the parade with the smudge. And it's a self-sabotage mechanism that will really, really badly mess you up. So then, from this standpoint, commit to going all the way. Repeat that after me. Commit to going all the way. Again, commit to going all the way. Again, commit to going all the way. What that means is that you understand that this is not about the achievement of comfort. You understand, okay, you want to be as comfortable as you can. I'm not all crazy, guys. Okay, I'm not like, sitting on spike. I don't like sit on tacks like, yeah, okay? Okay, pain will find you. You don't need to sit on a tack. If you want to, go ahead, but you don't need to. You'll get worse than a tack, and it'll happen whether you like it or not. It's going to find you. But you got to keep fighting, okay? You got to keep fighting. You got to keep going through the process. You got to earn your life. Earn your life. Earn your awakening. So, earn your freedom. Make the achievement of life, awakening, and freedom your priority. And so, you have to have that commitment. I will go all the way. The best movie that I've seen on this exact topic is The Gray with Liam Neeson. You ever seen it? The Gray with Liam Neeson. So what happens is they crash land, I believe it's Alaska, in an airplane. And there's this, they kind of vilify wolves in the movie. Probably shouldn't do that, but anyway, great movie. So what happens is these wolves are chasing them, and they're trying to survive. But over time, they realize they're never really going to get out of Alaska. It's impossible. They're not going to get out. So you can kind of keep fighting these wolves and try to get out, or you can kind of just give up and be comfortable. You kind of got to make your choice. So what happens is, you see some people who say, you know what, I just kind of want to look at this river until the wolves come and get me. Like, I'm sick of fighting. I'm sick of running around. I'm not doing this anymore. But, you know, there's one character, and he chooses to fight all the way to the end. Now, if in this movie, at the end of the movie, he kicks the wolf's butt, wins, and then goes home, the movie is basically just a bad version of Tom Hanks' Castaway with wolves. Okay? So the movie loses all the punch. If it's a typical formulaic Hollywood movie, the only way the movie holds itself together and works and then becomes one of the best movies is if death is guaranteed, and it is the decisions that you make in face of that death, that is what defines you. And so it's that idea of fighting till the very end. And the reason why the wolf analogy is so relevant is this. You believe that your life is categorically different than being chased by wolves, but you're in the exact same situation now. Any one of us could be killed in a car accident on the way home today. You could have a random heart attack, especially these days. You could have anything happen. You get robbed. You could get killed doing anything. So you look at Liam Neeson and these wolves chasing him. Oh, that sounds so scary. You're in the same situation now. So you got to acknowledge that you're in that actual situation now. Now, for pragmatic reasons, is it as bad as crash landing in Alaska and a wolf chasing you? No, probably not, especially not statistically. But you catch the main point. You're in that situation. So the movie is an analogy for how you choose to live life. And the way that you want to live life is imagine that core essence that goes on beyond your death. And how is it that you're shaping that in the course of your life? And are you even allowing that system to come online? You have the intelligence of the body, the intelligence of the ego mind, and the intelligence of the soul. Where are you speaking from? Where is your core essence the most attached into? Right? If you have a core essence, is it mostly just attached in the body? Is it mostly just attached in the ego? Or is it more clearly attached in the soul? And what is it that you're connecting to? Well, when the body dies, what happens? Body's gone. Poof! What happens if you're attached to that? Ego dies. Poof! What happens if you're attached to that? So you want to be asking yourself, what is your soul? This is just my personal opinion. There's a lot of really, really weird things that I've seen that are unrelatable that give me these ideas. A lot of classical ideas about spirituality that you could read about that'll share these ideas. If you go deeper into them and you begin to understand these texts, it'll share these ideas. But the truth is this, even if you didn't turn out to be correct and you just died and that's it, you still would have learned to operate from deep levels of unconscious competence. You still would have learned to operate from your deepest truth. You still would have learned to operate for the highest good, and you still would have learned to operate at your highest potential. So whether the infinite is the infinite, or whether the infinite is right now, in which case your life is all you know, you'd still wind up at your highest place. So, like I said, begin to look at things like making a bit more cash, getting bad addictions gone, and begin that process. Later come back at higher levels, later come back at higher levels, later come back at higher levels. But the main point of what I'm saying is that what you think of as the highest level may not be. Okay? There's whole other games being played under the surface here that you're not aware of. Okay? And you're going to see a lot of these games are going to really come into the focus probably in the next 10 or 20 years. You're going to see a lot of this. And what tends to happen, by the way, is that when we don't have a very, very strong foundation to what it is that we're building, we build this big, tall building that goes, what? Tips over. And you'll see a lot of that in the Bible of like entire civilizations just getting toasted. And the reason why was because the core foundations were flawed. And so what's happened is that freedom has created so much prosperity that it's beginning to collapse under its own weight. And we're lazy, and we don't really care about what's going on if it doesn't affect us directly. We hope that somebody else will handle it, and we sit there passive. They yell at us to say 2 + 2 = 5, and we go, okay, 2 + 2 = 5. If that's what I got to do to stay comfortable, I'll say 2 + 2 = 5. Whatever I got to do to stay comfortable, whatever I got to do to be trendy, whatever I got to do to avoid friction, whatever I got to do to keep a low profile and fit in, I'll just say back 2 + 2 = 5. And you guys just saw examples of that were unspeakable, and you just watched that happen. So if you think it can happen, you just watched it. What did you just watch? Do you see how quickly we all forget about it too? A year or two later, we've all moved on. We just forget about it, right? What's that mean? It tells you that we live in a society where people have very, very short attention spans. You could do that. So if that's where we're coming from, what hope do we have? and as society is accelerating, I don't know exactly what it's going to become, but as it's accelerating, where's human beings' place going to be in this world? So when I'm creating these videos, by the way, it's not just for you, it's also for my sons. You know, I have sons that are 40 years younger than me, right? So when my sons are going through this, I'll be able to see them, but they won't be able to see me. Right? I can see them, but they're not going to be able to see me. I'm not going to be able to be there for them in their greatest challenges. I'm not going to be able to be around for that. And I planted many seeds in their minds, just like I've done for you. Have any of you guys ever had it here where, like, you know, maybe in dating, there's like a little idea that I put in your mind in a video, and right when you needed it kind of popped out? Well, you can imagine with my own family, with my own blood, the kinds of things that I put in there. Okay? And I know what's coming for them. I get it. And I've put ideas in their mind that right when they need it, they're going to pop out. So they're built for this, okay? They're built to understand what's coming. And they don't even know it yet. They're unaware. They're in total bliss and happiness. They have no clue. They're totally just running around in circles, beating each other up and laughing at stuff, okay? But that's been put in there from a young age. So a lot of what now I've made these messages largely for them and largely for the generation after us. And a lot of the videos that I made in that 52 video series are for them, okay? And it's for what's going to come next. But the thing is that, you know, it's a message a bit ahead of its time. That's okay. But I'm also sharing it with you here because you know, our children will have the pressure to look at this stuff in great pressure, but we don't. But we can choose to be a little bit forward thinking, and we can choose to look at things more deeply right now if we want to, okay? And that's up to you. An event like this, it might be 2-3 people that get it. For the rest of you, this was like a psychedelic odyssey. You're just going to go home. You're going to be like, that guy's nuts, man. That guy's crazy. You know, right? And that'll be that. But I think what you'll notice is that there's sort of a resonance, right? Like you're hearing this and you're like, I feel like I'm connecting to something more authentic than what I connect with in day-to-day life. Like, do you ever get that feeling day-to-day life that you're kind of in a fake reality? You're starting in a fake reality. Does everybody get that feeling? Yeah. You're in the fake reality. Does anybody here right now, and again, I'm not perfect on this by any means, but anybody here feel like you're maybe connecting to a more real reality right now? Yeah. Like you've got a blindfold on, it's just being ripped off. I'm like, look at it. Now you'll go home and that blindfold will go right back on. Okay, you'll be right back around your regular friends and you're gonna say, that's too scary, that's too heavy, I don't even know where to start. And what I'd suggest to you is when that happens, just go back to small steps, exactly what I said, right? Go back to basic level things. It's okay to do selfish things when you're first starting. You've got your own Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's okay, and not only is it okay, it's amazing if you can begin to move into that. But ultimately, here's what I want to see from you. I want to see it to where you move out of coping and into thriving. And so what that means to me, from coping to thriving, is that I want you to think of a line in your mind of what coping means, and above that line, what thriving means. And so under that line, in the coping line, begin to analyze all of your behavior as whether or not it is a cope. You know, oh, I don't feel good, I need comfort, my attention span's short, I'm just doing this to take pressure off myself, I can't go into the pain, I don't know what to do, I want someone to think for me, this is too hard, too much ambiguity, I have to think too much for myself, I just want to be inside the Overton window, yada, yada, yada. Start thinking about that. You know, you want to be in the collective, be trendy, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, start thinking like that. Then start thinking about what it means to actually thrive. You know, and thriving could be things like what I told you. You have enough cash to buy supplements, organic food, trainers, private jets, transportation, helpers, build systems. You can now work on the couple areas where you can make a big difference, make a big impact. You can begin to be influential. You can begin to move the world. So that's in thriving. Having control over your emotions, connected to your own transcendent state independently. Then, having mastered that, think about what it means to go even past that and what it means to look at the cultivation and the evolution and the ascension of your soul. And what does that mean? Who are you becoming vis-a-vis this process of life? And please heed that warning, because death is coming to everyone in this room. And you're going to have that right in front of you. And you're going to have to look back at your life. You're going to have to look back at who you became. Like you, young man, you will have gray hair, maybe no hair. You'll be old, wrinkly, frail, cancer-ridden possibly. Things are going to change, right? So this is going to go by, boom, like that. And just like how every one of you here, like if you're in your 30s, you're in your 30s yet? It just goes, boom, passes, right? That'll be you in your 60s. Boom, you'll be 60. Boom, you'll be 90. Boom, you'll be dead. This goes by, boom, so fast. This is such a short ride, you have no idea. There's already billions dead, historically. You will be dead. You will be dead. So have that in your mind now. I will be dead. Say it.
I will be dead.
Okay? Louder.
I will be dead.
Again.
I will be dead.
So know that, okay? That's called death awareness. Say death awareness.
Death awareness.
Awareness of my death.
Awareness of my death.
So what that means is just realizing death is coming. Death is the equalizer that makes us realize what's important and what's not important. So keep that in your mind, that you want to enjoy life and master life and grow and evolve to the greatest extent that you can while you're alive. But from there, you're going to be dead. So get ready. Get ready. Get ready. Okay? Get right with yourself. Get aligned. Start thinking about the bigger picture of why you're here. Even if you disagreed with every single thing that I said, one thing that you can clearly take away from this speech that anybody could is look at the bigger picture of your life. There could be somebody that had a completely different opinion from everything I said here, but they could at least acknowledge, man, this guy's looking at the bigger picture of his life. So look at the bigger picture of your life. Zoom out, see the big Google Maps picture. Now, after you've done that, zoom back in and look at the street signs, okay? So what I've engaged you with here is a bit of a psychedelic odyssey where I've taken you and I've gone out here, okay? Then tomorrow you go back in here, but what you've done is you've taken the wisdom from coming out here, because remember, just because I've said things, it's not about taking what I say verbatim, it's about me stimulating your imagination. Me saying to you, you know, could it be this? Could it be that? Could it be something else? Maybe you'd say, I don't know about that, Owen, but maybe it's this. So you'd have to come to your own conclusion. I just give you some of my ideas, but go with yours. So you pull back, have that critical thinking. Don't just go with my ideas, go with yours, but look at the process that we're using to see the bigger picture and think about the bigger picture of life. Then we zoom back in, and it's like they say in spiritual growth and Eastern philosophy, after enlightenment, the laundry. You ever heard that expression? After enlightenment, the laundry. And what that means is that, yeah, you became spiritual enlightenment. Spiritual enlightenment. Good stuff. Now do the laundry. That's basically what it means, right? So today, bam, okay? Got this crazy guy coming just like right up in your face, like late at night after, bam. You're gonna kill me. Now go do the laundry. So that's okay. So right today here, we pull back. Tomorrow we go back to the pragmatic ideas of life. And that means that we've got practical day-to-day life to deal with, right? Like I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll actually go do laundry. You know what I'm saying, right? Like I might even do my laundry tonight. So, you know, go get a snack. Go hit up the club. Go call my friends, right? Go see what's up. So, you know, so we can go in life, we want to go like that. We want to think about the bigger picture, but we don't want to become so zoomed out like a psychedelic junkie that we can't go back in and then handle the day-to-day. Because really, the bigger picture all comes together, the better that you handle the day-to-day. But the day-to-day is more effective when you have awareness of the bigger picture. So that was the main lesson that I wanted to leave you here with today. I appreciate all of you for being out here in this beautiful experience that we shared together. I hope that everybody has had a lot of practical tips from many of our sessions this weekend. I hope that you guys have had inspiration that you're going to take with you, and I hope that you've deeply, deeply reconsidered your life. Thank you for being here, and we'll call it a weekend. I appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thank you. Last of the Mohicans up here.